Welcome to Pratidwani, where we try to humanize science. It is my delight and pleasure to introduce you to my guest on this particular episode, Suresh Govindarajan. Suresh is a theoretical physicist and is at the Department of Physics at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Uh, Interestingly, he is joining this particular call all the way from Zanzibar in Africa, where he is now also part of that setup of IIT Madras, Zanzibar. Uh, Welcome to Pratidwani, Suresh.
Thank you for the kind invitation.
Yeah. So Suresh, we have so many interesting kind of layers to unveil during this particular process. But I'm going to request you to give us an overview of your background and how you got interested in science right from the beginning of your childhood, and then we'll explore other aspects related to your work and many interesting things what you're doing. And importantly, to the listeners, I should mention Suresh is also an avid runner. He actually runs marathons and has been running for a very long time now. And I'm delighted that he's joining here, and we're going to also discuss a little bit about that. So, Suresh, tell us about your background, especially your biographical aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was finishing high school, my favorite subject was physics, and it was largely motivated by a wonderful physics teacher, Mr. Subbarao, and so he made me love physics because he loved physics. And actually, to this day, this is, I think, what I want to convey to my students is the sheer joy of doing physics. And
Hmm.
so so I just wanted to. I didn't know anything about a PhD, but I thought after finishing my high school, I would do a degree in physics. And I also wrote the joint entrance exam to get into IITs, but getting into IIT was an unusual occurrence in my neighborhood, at least. And so when I got in, I did reasonably well, so I could pick anything I wanted. So I thought, okay, I can do. At that time, there were physics courses only in Kharagpur and Kanpur, I think. And so I decided to go and do 5 year MSc at IIT Kanpur. Looked everything seemed clear, and my dad, who never ever interfered with my education or studies, he said, there are some guys in my place where I work. They are scientists. Maybe you should talk to them before you take a concrete decision. I said, no problem. My father was working in nuclear fuel complex, which is a unit of DAE, and so he's not a scientist
Hmm.
or anything. He took me to meet
Hmm.
people who work in nuclear fuel complex, and who all told me not to do physics. So I thought, what do I know at age 17? Said, okay, I'll go and do something. I mean, I know nothing about engineering, so I decided then to choose electrical engineering at IIT Madras. And pretty much in my first year, I realized that, hey, no, I should be doing physics. But I had no clue that I had no way out, just to finish my degree and figure out what to do after that. And one thing I must say is that I did not use that as a cop out and bunked all classes saying I'm interested in physics. No, I actually solved the problem in a very interesting way. I had 100% attendance in class, and so I would give also 100% attention to the EE courses. And after that, I never bothered about them. It worked reasonably well. I was not class topper, but I was not flunking. So those 4 years was okay in that sense. I also, it was very competitive. So you make a mistake in one exam, you lose a grade. But my classmates were extremely friendly. We were not cutting each other's throats. So I would say that on the whole, it was a nice 4 year experience where I did electrical engineering and knew no physics. I would say I did courses in physics, etc. So I started graduate school in physics. I applied for and got in, and of course, I had a very low opinion of myself in terms of my knowledge of physics. And that's a weird story. I didn't know. I thought, a gate in physics. I took gate in physics because I thought I could get admission to some university in India if if going abroad didn't work. And I did really well in that. But I had the most interesting comment on that. I told my older sister, look, I know no physics, and my doing well in this exam doesn't bode well for the others. I mean, I know nothing. and which was true fact. I mean, looking back, I was very honest in appraisal of my own level. And so then I went on to graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania, and the first 1.5 years, 3 semesters, I just went and did all basic physics courses. And I would say at the end of 2 years, I reached the level of an MSc, a good MSc student. So I was, but that was the best years of my life. I enjoyed learning so much physics at that time, and it was fun, and it was also brutal in the sense that every professor, we did only 3 or 4 courses, while at IITs you do 6 courses. But these 3 or 4 courses were much more intense than the 6 courses. It's not 3 courses is greater than 6 at IITM. I would say that. And so, but it was wonderful experience. I learned all my physics, and I did every assignment they gave every week,
Hmm.
one for every course. And I did every one on my own until if I made a mistake, it was mine, no problem. But that's how I really pushed myself out of zero to the level of our graduating MSc students now. That was my level after 2 years. So that was a
So,
wonderful journey.
one of the important aspect, Suresh, is that you have taken an unconventional route to theoretical physics through engineering. And the aspect related to the interest is something which we should also discuss a little bit, because uh, generally people who do engineering tend to also go to some other specific areas which might not be related to, let's say, natural sciences. But in your case, it looks like you took that particular interest from whatever you were learning from engineering, and kind of rooted that towards natural sciences, especially physics. So was this kind of something you were thinking about in your early stage? Because when you were, let's say, growing up, was physics something which you really wanted to do, or was this a decision you made later when you started your engineering and getting exposed?
No, at age 17, I wanted to do physics. 16, 15, 16, 17, I just wanted to do physics and nothing else. Not maths, not chemistry, and not biology, because I skipped after 10th grade, which I
Hmm.
greatly regret to this day, because it meant dissecting frogs and stuff like that. And I cannot handle blood. I can't see blood in a movie, forget in real life. So, I mean, in fact, when my son, I can't even see somebody taking a shot. So all my son's vaccinations, I was never present.
Wow.
So I miss learning biology, and that's some regret, but it's not really my fault.
Yeah, in fact, that is one thing I've increasingly been seeing, especially among people whom I have discussed about. Those who have gone to, let's say, engineering or physical sciences generally would have not got a good kind of a teacher at the early stage, especially in biology and chemistry. And the way they were taught probably is one of the reasons, right? That is probably one of the things.
So for me in high school, my teachers were very good, including
Mm.
biology, 10th, 9th, and I mean, this was a wonderful school. It's middle, I mean, it's Atomic Energy Central School. I mean, nothing great, it's just a colony wala local school, the Central CBSE. But the teachers in our time was very good, and small classes, 25 students, 30 students. And just they were I mean, I'm so grateful. I mean, what I am today, I mean, it's really funny, the activity series, our chemistry teacher, Mr. Shastri, he taught us, some I mean, till this day I can tell you that, post overcame Jolzi ferritin leadage commerce AUPT. I mean, there it is. This
Wonderful,
he taught us.
wonderful.
So I mean, it's just some and he was the smartest among our teachers, but he was not the most inspiring. The physics guy, I mean, physics professor, he was just inspiring. I mean, and he was limited in his knowledge, and he never hid it.
Mm.
And the maths teacher never came. So I learned all my maths doing physics, which is ironically exactly how I'm doing. I mean, I'm very mathematical. I didn't know that, and to this day, I've learned all my maths doing physics. And
Wow,
people, I mean,
wonderful.
yeah. I mean, really high
Yeah, this is
marks for
something.
engineering.
Exactly, exactly. I'm going to come to that particular point,
Mhm.
especially I'm always curious to, and also very fascinated that people who do some outstanding mathematics have very strong footing in physics. And many a times you don't approach mathematics only as an abstract kind of principle, but there is some kind of a physical underpinning to a lot of questions one would ask. Was this also something part of your education, Suresh? Like you did have a very strong mathematical training, or was
No,
it
no.
very kind of an organic?
The only maths courses I did was part of my engineering, calculus 1, 2. That's it.
Wow, wonderful,
So,
wonderful.
and then I did a
We-
probability course also. So
Mm,
these are the
mm,
three things I did. So I really
nice.
did not do, and most physics students do a mathematical methods course. Never done that. So you know how I learned special functions? I've solved 25% of Jackson's problems as part of assignments. You know the classic book
Nice.
on electrodynamics.
Yes,
So
yes, of course,
so
yeah.
I mean that's some heavy lifting that I had to do in the 2 years that I mentioned. So
So before we really get into the IIT and also the your experience at UPenn, I want to just touch upon a little bit about the DAE school, what you mentioned.
yeah,
Could you tell us where it was and what was the kind of environment in which you grew up? Just paint
yeah.
us a picture briefly.
Yeah. So, nuclear fuel complex and ECIL, which was another company, these two companies, they were located very, very far from the center of the city. Secunderabad station was like 12 kilometers away. And, to get there, you have to take a bus, there used to be one bus every 45 minutes. And, sometimes they will get canceled. So you have to wait 1.5 hours for a bus and stuff like that. So it's very, very far, middle of nowhere. There's a colony there which had some flats, and there was a school, Atomic Energy Central School. So for some reason, they wanted to form, the atomic energy. People get transferred within the establishment. You go to places, so they wanted to establish. They established something called the Atomic Energy Education Society, and they ran schools. So, for instance, in Bombay, in Anushakti Nagar, there is a school. So AECS Bombay, Tarapur, there is another. Then there is one more. I mean, now there are many, many more. I mean, then in Bihar, I'm forgetting the name of the place. For
Rourkela,
mines,
Rourkela,
no,
Rourkela, is it? Jadugoda.
Jadugoda, close to Rourkela, Jadugoda mines. There's the uranium mines there. So, so these were the few examples. Kalpakam was one place where they refused to join. There's a KV there already. They said we don't join this system, so it's still KV Kalpakam. So this is the kind of setup. And so there is a colony, and people live in the colony. You walk to the school, and that's it. And my neighbor was my principal, so I played marbles in front of his house. so,
Fascinating, fascinating.
so,
Yeah.
so it's like and one more great thing about the school was that there was no stratification, in the sense that the the head of NFC versus the lowest guy in NFC, their children would all study in the same school. So I mean, so it was there was no stratification either in terms of economic things, religion, nothing. And so it was really a wonderful experience in that sense. Though I mean, I also realize today that I'm very different from my own classmates today, where their inclinations and these things go is quite different from mine. So there is, maybe we saw a different world, but it was a wonderful experience. So,
Very nice, very nice.
and no, there's one more interesting story, because I
Yeah.
have two older sisters and one younger sister. So I never had an identity of my own. I was only known as their sibling. So this one's Nalini's brother or Anita's brother. So I had no identity. I was fine with it. But it was really bad for my youngest sibling. She was known as the sister of three others. It's like, terrible. I don't know. It didn't bother me. I don't think it bothered her. But one thing I do know, that academically she flourished after we three graduated and left. So she was a
That's
middling
very
student.
interesting.
She was a middling student when she wrote 10th standard. and she was the school topper at 12th. It's our fault, not hers.
That's very fascinating. And it is also a kind of a reflection of times. Probably you're talking about 1970s or
80s. I
80s.
graduated in 82, so yeah, late 70s, early 80s.
That is that. So
Yeah,
that is also a time where, means of course I have my anchoring of childhood is in 80s, early 80s,
mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
other times. That is also a time when the pleasures what you derive are not materialistic for various different reasons, right? Because neither were we
Yeah, yeah. We
an
couldn't afford
economy where
anything. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
No, no, I remember getting an empty, getting a cycle tire would have been a dream. You could take a
Yeah.
stick and push it around. That would have been a toy.
No,
That was our toy.
beautiful. Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the very important sport, rather more like a time pass where you just take a kind of an old tire of a cycle and then go around and with the stick
With
and
the stick and
yeah,
maneuver it with it with the stick. That
exactly,
was our
exactly. Yeah,
pleasure. Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Suresh, now that you actually finished this high school and you now move towards IIT Kanpur, now
IIT
tell
Madras.
us.
IIT Madras.
Oh, IIT Madras. Sorry,
I want
IIT
it to
Madras.
be. I want it to be IIT Kanpur.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Could you tell us about that transition? Like, how did that happen? That particular transition. How did you switch from that DA kind of schooling to IIT Madras, where you now go on to start your engineering course? Now,
Mhm.
what was that transition, and how did you kind of
Okay. So
come?
it was actually very interesting. The first year, it's sort of the excitement of getting into a new place, living in a hostel, away from home, having to hand wash all your clothes. Luckily, we didn't have many clothes either,
Mm,
as you might know.
mm,
If you had four shirts and four
yeah.
pants, it was like four pants might have been too much. So anyway, whatever. I don't remember the exact number. It was some small number. So it was just getting into the thing, getting into classes, etc. That itself, first year was kind of just went by in some ways, but there was also there was in some ways I was a misfit. I think of myself, I've been a misfit in every place in my whole life. I was a misfit for many reasons. First is my interest in physics, and people said, you know, and sometimes in physics exams, they'll give you questions which are wrong, and I would be fighting with the professor, and they will laugh. Say, Suresh, you should know the correct wrong answer. I still to this day I remember one particular question which I had a huge fight with the physics professor, and I mean other courses I didn't bother, but physics it would used to bother me, and of course I lost the battle. But anyway, so that was one strange thing about me. The second thing was ethical values. I felt that the ethical values among IITians, which is still true till today, nothing special about my group. I think ethical values were much lower than what I wanted, what I expected. So it took me a year to establish that A, I don't copy from you, B, you don't copy from me. I will give my answer. And so they kind of, I remember in my second year, they used to make fun of me saying, you will never manage in this whole world. In this world, everybody is cheating, doing everything in this time. But somehow I felt that that is not the way I am wired. And so then they kind of, after that, it was nice. It took me a year to establish that, and maybe a year and a half, after which I was left alone. I mean, at least in these sort of shenanigans, I'm not involved. And so that was, so that's, in some ways, I was a misfit. I used to joke at that time. I would say that, guys will sell their mother and father if it suits them. But there's one condition, that they should be almost sure that they won't get caught. So that was my feeling at that time.
That's
And
actually a very. It's also an age where taking that choice would have been socially very difficult for you, right? Because
yes,
you
yes.
essentially get isolated among all the people who may
I
want to
I
actually go
basically,
in one.
yeah, that happened. The sad fact, the set of friends that I had in my first year and the set of friends I had later, close friends, the intersection is close to zero.
Wow.
That happened,
What,
yes.
mm. This also means that it gives you a kind of an individuality, which probably is kind of expressed in your own way. Because, if you also look at your own trajectory, which we're going to expand a little bit more, you're also making choices where very, sorted off engineering degree in one of the most important institutions in India. And a person would not pursue that particular line and goes into theoretical physics. Those kind of decisions would require a strong kind of opinionated, individualistic viewpoint. And when you are now finishing up your undergraduate as a BTech undergrad, now, was there already kind of a processing in your mind where you're thinking that you will have to make this shift, or was it very gradual? How did that happen?
Oh, no,
What
no.
was going?
Pretty much, it was very clear that I was going to do a PhD in physics, but I wasn't aware or thinking too much about post PhD outcomes. I just wanted to do physics as long as I could, and so that was one thing. And I also was never interested in making money. I always wanted to have enough money to just survive, live my life, but nothing more than that. So that was one, again, that was an oddity in some ways, but that's the way I've always been. And so there was no doubt in my mind, but did have a backup plan in the sense that I applied for jobs. I mean, the thing was, the sad part was I was not eligible for PhD programs in India. My gate rank, whatever it was, notwithstanding that. I mean, I was not eligible, say, even to get into TIFR. I think they changed within a year or two. They started accepting BTech students
BTech
who passed
students.
it. Yeah, but I was not eligible for anything in India. So only way out was to get a PhD abroad. But if I didn't get a visa and couldn't make it, I was going to take a job. And I got two jobs actually. One with something called Citibank Overseas Software Limited, which and the other one was what I would have taken if I had. It was telco, and I wanted to work in telco Pune, not in Jamshedpur,
Hmm.
because the news going around was that they were developing a car. Do you know which car?
Oh, this was probably
Indica.
maybe the
It was Indica. That
Indica,
was their
early
first
version
car.
of Indica.
They
Yes,
were
yes.
working on Indica, and I wanted to be in that project, and I didn't get that. I didn't get.
Wow, fascinating,
Didn't get
fascinating.
selected. I think I got
Yeah,
Jamshedpur.
okay.
So I would have chosen that. But COSIL is also interesting. It became iFlex or something. And if I had joined COSIL, I think I'll be worth many, many zeros. Because iFlex did very well. They went into banking software and stuff like that. So COSIL morphed into something. I know because someone else I know worked in iFlex and they say, "Oh, Suresh, you should have been in iFlex." All the top guys are all top guys are like you, IIT guys. I said, no, that is not what I wanted to do at that point in time. But yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing was, yeah, there was no name for the car, but we knew about it. So it was like, ah, COSIL was not interesting writing software there, but Tata was interesting. So that would have been the other option.
Fascinating, fascinating. So during this particular time, I think you are doing electrical engineering, right?
Yeah,
If I understand
electronics or
correctly.
whatever. It was called electronics. We used to call it,
Electronics.
that time there were two electronics, electrical engineering, electronics and power. We used to call them low voltage, low current and high current. So I did LC in IIT
LCO.
Madras, low current. Today we
No,
have
correct.
abolished all that. There's only one
Yes,
degree.
yes. Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. So now, during that particular time, you already have a strong kind of urge to get into physics,
Yeah,
but here you are still doing courses in LC, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
How
yeah.
how did you maintain that interest, Suresh? 4 years
Okay,
can
so
be.
yeah. So here's what I did. Uh, I one summer I stayed back and did two summer courses. One of them was a course called Quantum Mechanics for Engineers, and I did that whole course, and I didn't know that linear vector spaces has anything to do with quantum mechanics. high point of that course was quantizing a ball using Bohr-Sommerfeld quantization as you drop against gravity. Can you believe it? So, so
Wow.
I didn't know. I mean, then I later I did a quantum two course where quite a lot of Anglo-momentum algebra, Clebsch-Gordon coefficients, and scattering theory was done, but no Dirac equation, no Klein-Gordon equation. So I didn't. So here I am graduating from IIT Madras with two courses in quantum mechanics, really looking good on paper, except I have no idea that vector spaces have anything to forget Hilbert spaces. Vector spaces has anything to do with quantum mechanics. So you understand what my problems are. I mean, these IIT BTechs have no clue. I mean, I'm included in that list in the sense that we have this enormous willpower to do calculations mindlessly. We can do. It doesn't matter how long it is, 10 pages long, no problem, sir. I will do it, and you just push your way through without any physical insight. I mean, my colleague Professor Lakshmi Bala, she said that you BTechs, you have no smell for the subject, and it rankled me when she first said that, but I also said, yes, that is true. And after that day, I said, I am not going to get into that thing. And I work to this day, I'm still working to get out of that, just that hole, because you have this enormous hammer, which you can use for anything without thinking. So,
No, but
anyway.
it also serves certain kind of work very well, right? Because that kind of tenacity sometimes is very useful for some particular tasks. Of course,
Yeah, yeah.
when you do research and you want to, especially when it comes to physics, it might not serve that well. But for a certain other kind of processes of,
Say exams,
you
no
know,
say exams.
uh, so, so it's only exams. Do you think? Is there
No,
anything
no, no,
else?
no, 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 no. That's not true. That's not true.
Mm,
That in the sense that there is a good part to it. I mean, in the sense
mm,
that one is not intimidated by
yeah.
long calculations. So I mean, I'll tell you more about this later. But I saved my PhD by doing a 65-page calculation one weekend, watching National Football League football match and doing the calculation and eating masala
Wow.
dosa, one after the
We'll
other.
come to that. We'll come to that.
so,
We'll come to
so
that.
here
We'll
is
come to
here
that.
is one example of where that helped, because I knew the calculation from start to finish, but I had to do it, and so I did
Fantastic.
it.
Fantastic. So now let's kind of discuss about the transition, where you are now making a transit from BTech to PhD. Tell us about your first foray into the North America, and how does that transition happen?
Oh, okay, so forget foray into North America. I mean,
Mhm.
nobody traveled by plane before. So the first
Hmm.
time I traveled by plane was taking a flight. So I went home to Hyderabad, and from Hyderabad to Bombay, Bombay to New York, New York to Philadelphia. So that was the
Wow.
route I took.
Hmm.
And so I have never gone on a plane in the first place. And those days people would smoke in the plane.
Wow, inside the
So
plane.
yeah, inside the plane, yeah, yeah. And so I remember that you asked for a non-smoking seat, but it's like this: row 34 to 40 is non-smoking, but 33 will be smoking. And
Interesting.
I'm really allergic to cigarette smoke. So I remember that being really kind of Hyderabad Bombay flight is very short, so it didn't matter.
Hmm.
A Bombay to New York flight was really this thing. So it was like this completely new thing, and then land in a new country, and then we speak English very fast. They don't
Hmm.
understand you. I mean, it was weird. And also, I had to go 1 month in advance because UPenn had for English proficiency, you have to write something called TOEFL, TOEFL,
Hmm.
which is still there.
Hmm.
But
Yes, yes.
yeah, but Penn was the only university which had one more requirement called test of spoken English. So and that was like we had to pay money and it was so expensive. So I wrote to them saying, look, can you waive it for me? English is my first language. They said, okay, we waive it. But then they call after I got the admission accepted. They said you come 2 months in advance so that you can because you have not completed TSE. I called up and said, no, I'm not coming. I can't come. I don't need to learn English. Then they struck a compromise. You come 1 month in advance. Then they were paying me for that period. It wasn't like they weren't paying my stipend or anything. So so I went 1 month in advance. So I have 1 month before classes to settle down, and then I have to go to these classes, which is mostly for people from China. Most of our classmates from China who are all from various departments at Penn, they didn't know any English, and they're saying they're learning. My name is so and so, my this thing, and the person who was running the program, she gave me a test of spoken English the day I landed there and met her, and I passed it. And then she said, Suresh, there's no need for you to come to many of these things, except one thing where it's a group discussion thing. I would like you to participate because you'll have one more person who will participate and can speak English. It'll help. So it's like I had 1 month paid time in Philadelphia without doing anything. So that gave me some time to get used to the place. But then something dramatic happened once classes started, and so my classmates said, Suresh, you don't know anything about the USA. We have to introduce you to various things. So they would take me to various places, or even some horrible events, just like that. You have to see this is also part of America. So, the first 10 days of classes, we were like, I got introduced to all sorts of things. Uh, which was very typical of America. And then of course the spelling differences, we used to have a great time. Like they would say, we spell aluminium and they say aluminum, and so the spellings are different. So we would have a great time. So I had actually, in that sense, my classmates were amazing. They really taught me a lot of things about how to get around in the US, etc. I can imagine, for instance, suppose I had gone to the US not as a PhD student but as a postdoc, I would have been truly isolated because there is no peer group to help you. Here, my own classmates were my peer group, and so it was very useful. And then we had one Taiwanese girl, and the other Chinese wouldn't help her. And these guys were so caring. They noticed this, and so after that, any information about the courses, etc., we all of us would pass it on to her, not the Chinese guys. Somehow they sidelined this one girl who was pretty smart, by the way, and nothing wrong with her, but they just, a typical male chauvinism, which is there in all our cultures. So it was just that. So in that sense, they really helped me sort of get in sync with the place. So
Wow.
it was.
So the divide of China and Taiwan was already there, prevalent,
Oh yeah,
right?
it's already there, pretty much. But no, there's a Taiwanese guy also in the class.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, and Taiwanese
Oh,
guy,
okay.
so he did the same thing. So there were other mainland China, so they will all hang around and do stuff, and and they're all fascinated with cars. So periodic, the only discussion would be I would hear them with deep discussions in the common room or whatever area where there's coffee and things like that, and periodically some car names will come. They're all fascinated with cars, and me, to this day, have no fascination with cars.
I should say I have similar kind of non-fascination, so to speak.
What
You
is
could
it? A
say
device to drive. You ask me to differentiate between cars. I will tell you big car, small car. And I know SUV, I hate them because the drivers have an attitude and I have to run out of the way when I'm jogging.
that's very fascinating. I will come to that point. I'm very, very, interested in also knowing about the many things. So one of the things is also that you probably had to do a master's there, if I'm correct, in the
That's
US.
a great question because I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So masters at Penn meant you pass the. So when you write the qualifying exam, which I wrote after 3 semesters, I think, in my fourth semester or something, I wrote that. And by the time, because my the Chinese guys, they were passed the exam on day one. Me, I would have failed it. I didn't know anything. So after I was ready, I took it, and so after that, so the PhD qualifying exam is a written one, four papers, and based on that, you get either master's level pass or PhD level pass. So master's level pass means you have to leave with a master's degree. So if you get a
Hmm.
PhD level pass, which I got, which is higher, so in principle, all I needed to do was fill some piece of paper and get a degree. But I never bothered to do that because I didn't think what PhD is greater than in my this. I'll collect my PhD. So I graduated with without collecting this piece of paper. So I remember towards the end of my stay, Uma Shankar, who was many years my senior, a professor at IIT Bombay, Uma came and told me he had come back to Penn to visit. He said, Suresh, you better. He's also a similar track record, like he from IIT Madras. So, who went on to do theoretical physics. And so he told me, Suresh, you should get a master's. I thought it's a little late, forget it. And maybe it won't matter. So eventually, I went and did a postdoc at IMSC and then was at TIFR. And that time, internet around 93, 94, internet had just come. I'm surfing the websites using, those days I didn't at TIFR, I didn't have access to fancy computers. No, the only browser I was using was one thing called Lynx, Lynx, text-based browser. And I mean, Mosaic had not yet come or was just coming. That was the first, I think, graphical browser, followed quickly by Netscape. So anyway, so I used to use Lynx, Lynx, and go and surf it. Surfing website at one Penn website, and then I wrote to somebody saying, I finished all my master's requirements. I graduated this year from the physics department. But I never collected a master's. I'm in the job market. Somehow in my country, it seems that I need to get a piece of paper which says I have a master's. So I thought nothing will happen. You go click and mail to, you click that mail to window. I don't know if it'll pop out. You fill the thing and send it. Then 2 weeks later, I get an email from my department. Suresh, you're getting master's degree in the next convocation. And there was some matter of some paper and some payment of $50. Department has paid that money, so you don't have to do anything. You just have to tell me which address your degree has to come if you're not coming for the thing. And so basically, I got the master's paper. I got it 2 years after I graduated with a PhD. But the requirements were finished 3 years before I graduated with a PhD. So it was very funny. I mean, but we are a strange country. Only later I realized that people can be ruled out because they don't have a first degree in physics. Yeah. Yes. So now people, please, doesn't matter. Please collect that piece of paper.
True. So one of the aspects you mentioned about is that you are now getting really, exposed to high-level courses in physics and also some exposure to mathematics at that particular time. Tell us about your training, Suresh, because I'm always fascinated to know the making of a theoretical physicist, because it's a unique kind of a process where you have to have a very good picture of the observable universe, and also a good grasp of abstraction of that particular observable universe. How did you develop that part of it?
Yeah, so there are actually two ways of doing mathematics. One, the way mathematicians do. They have some axiom, theorem, definitions, and then you go and check. I define in my class, I define a vector space. You check that this something is a vector space. You take the definition, check it satisfies all the properties, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. But that's not how we learn maths in physics. We start with an example. So take example rotations. So then it's related to angular momentum algebra. So you get that and you learn. So I learned my angular momentum algebra really well. So SU2 group theory I knew really well. That's it. So that was my introduction to group theory. Then solving Laplace's equation. That's where I learned about completeness and all these things. Solving using the Frobenius power series and getting all the special functions, etc. in different coordinate systems. So that taught me differential equations, partial differential equations, separations of variables. And I remember I sort of had done a course in electrical engineering, but I didn't know about this completeness. And I had a high school classmate who asked me, as explaining to him, he was doing BSc in physics or something. So I was telling him the solutions to Poisson's equation and stuff like that. But he asked me this question at that time. I said, how do you know you've got everything? And I didn't know about completeness. Nobody ever told me that. Who cares anyway? So I didn't know that word. And when I was in graduate school, I learned about this. I said, that answers that guy's question. But I didn't know it either. So I sort of knew how to do the calculations. But so here are two different examples. of this thing. So, for instance, again, you have Cauchy's residue theorem. I learned that
Mm.
doing electrical engineering because you're doing control theory, you're doing transfer functions, you're doing Laplace transforms, inverse Laplace transforms, and you have to do those integrals. And so I learned to do that in the corridor. Somebody told me, one of my classmates taught me residue theorem. So, if you're given one by some this thing, you use partial fractions and break it up into simple things, do that integral, blah, blah, blah. So I learned that way, but I never learned Cauchy-Riemann conditions, blah, and this thing, this thing. I never learned all those things in that fashion. So it's sort of random sets of examples. But what my approach has been to abstract away that. So the fact that I learned about, Lie, for instance, Lie group equal to exponential Lie algebra, that is the way I understand it. So if you're given a group, you do infinitesimal transformations and recover the algebra. BCH formula, those are things I learned doing quantum mechanics. And
Nice.
similarly, when I did 3 courses in quantum mechanics, and so there I learned about relativistic quantum mechanics. Even there is an interesting story because QFT course was starting, and it's a 3-semester QFT course. And I have never done relativistic quantum mechanics. I know that something called Dirac equation exists. Except if I miss this, I have to wait 1.5 years. It might be too late. So that was it was in my 3rd semester or something. So or 2nd semester, I don't remember. So I just went ahead and took the course on quantum field theory without knowing what Dirac equation is, Klein-Gordon equation. So do that. So, and then I went to the library and looked at some books, and then I saw this text by Ramond on quantum field theory. Okay, and in the beginning, he has representation theory of the Lorentz in the Poincare group. It's in 4 pages or 3 pages, and I read that, and then so I knew that I knew about spinor. I knew Dirac spinor is I don't know if you know this. It's half 0 plus 0 half. It is reducible as this thing, and so on and so forth. You have so I knew all those things, and then I started. But then later I do Dirac equation. There you do this alpha and that beta. Then no gamma comes later only, and then you put all the conditions so it squares to become this thing. So I learned all those things post facto, and that's what was meant in the QFT because I learned everything in the wrong order. But it didn't matter. So I learned some amount of relativity that way, special relativity through representation theory, and how the Lorentz group breaks up into two Lie algebras which are isomorphic to SU2 and stuff like that. I did this course.
Fascinating.
So
Fascinating. Fascinating.
all things learned the wrong order and everything. So it doesn't matter.
No, but the thing is, see, I also have spoken to a few mathematicians on Pratidwani, and of course, their training and their upbringing and kind of exposure to maths is very different from physics. Even, for example, experimental physicists also have some very interesting development in training in mathematics. For example, especially the emphasis one will have to give for statistics and calculus
Mm-hmm.
is quite a lot. In fact, that is a strong footing on which you will have to develop a lot of things, because even at a slightly higher level, if you are doing any kind of optics or any kind of nonlinear dynamics, for example, that is another beautiful
Mm-hmm.
kind of area, or for that matter, condensed matter physics and other things. Now, you will have to have some kind of an exposure to mathematics, which has to be somehow managed with the physical picture. And that way of looking at the world is quite beautiful, right? Because you will start appreciating things in a different way once you start looking at things from a slightly more quantitative viewpoint. And I'm
Yeah.
sure theoretical physicists really have that beautiful insight into the physical world in slightly more mathematical way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, but for instance, for me, maths is useful. It's a really useful tool. For instance, I'll tell you that something which I didn't know for a long time is that so there is this thing about equivalence relationship between two sets. So there are 3 properties they say. A should be if A if sorry, you're given a set and you define some relation on that set, right? So you say A is related to B implies B is this thing. So symmetric. A is related to A, and transitivity. There are 3 properties they say, all of which have to be satisfied. And we physicists, we are so imprecise. We will check two of the three properties.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so so then we'll end up getting wrong conclusions. So that's where I find maths useful, where you have this structure which you half understand. I will never claim to understand something fully. Okay, and then if you're able to map it to that math problem, it will tell you, oh, look for these extra conditions, and you quietly go and check, does it work? Most of the time it works, but you didn't know that.
Fantastic.
But
Fantastic.
I'll give you another thing. How I'll give a converse also. I claim that some parts of group theory has to happen in physics. So, which it's like if you observe A, observe B, observe C, and we are asking for what coordinates, whatever each person chooses, it shouldn't be relevant to the physics. Will not change, right? I mean, whatever. I mean, in some sense. So you will say that okay, we'll say that these two should see the same physics. So there you write some transformation which will take from A to B, and B and C again will do, but A and C will also do. So this is a group composition law. You can go from A to B to B to C, or go straight from A to C. So that's group laws. You write, then you can put one more, and you can do associativity, blah blah. But that this has to work is physics.
True.
But
True.
it is also called group composition law, and quite often that is a very beautiful way of physics tells you that this should be so. I mean, otherwise it's crazy. So,
Very nice.
so
Fascinating, fascinating. In fact, that is something which also kind of jogs back my own memory because during the BSc, especially if you're doing BSc in 1990s in Bangalore, you had to take mathematics as the main kind of part of your
you
curriculum.
had 2 years of mathematics, right? 2 years of
No,
mathematics.
3 years, all 3 years.
Oh,
In
that
fact,
is it. Oh, this is like Andhra Pradesh where I grew up, right? So
yes,
there
yeah,
you didn't do BSc in maths, physics, or chemistry. You did
yeah,
whole BSc in
whole,
all.
whole. Yeah, yeah, rings, groups, differential
Oh, I'm so
geometry.
jealous. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, and because maths is also something, especially if you're looking from physics viewpoint, it gradually occurs to you
Yeah, yeah,
because you would learn it, mechanics you will learn it, but for example, isomorphism, homomorphism, all these
yeah,
kind of concepts, uh, which we were taught at maybe at third year of BSc, and
uh,
you already start seeing very interesting structure evolving, but you don't know in what way it will help you to reveal the physical world. And the
yeah,
moment you see the connection in physics, that is a beautiful thing because
yeah.
immediately
Exactly.
you'll realize that there is something very very interesting and important.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like you can. A classic example is that the Galilean group has to be a group set of
Mm.
Galilean transformations.
Yes, yes, exactly,
And that
exactly.
follows from what I just said,
Yeah.
So, but you have to work out the composition law. It's ugly. I mean, because it's semi-direct product, so you get some messed up things. So I make my students work it out. I mean, I'm saying all this using physics, but what does the math say? So
Yeah.
that is fun.
Yeah, in fact, that's very interesting because personally speaking, the rigorous math we learned in BSc actually was much more than my MSc physics mathematics. It was very interesting, at
Definitely,
least
definitely.
in my case, because there was no discrimination between physics and mathematics there. Because at the end of the BSc, you could have even gone to mathematics as
Yes.
as an option.
This is
And I
exactly how it used to be in Andhra Pradesh.
oh,
In
okay,
Hyderabad,
okay,
that's what it was.
yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I see the benefit of getting trained that way because it will still keep your options open. But of course,
Hmm.
physics takes the cake
But if I
most of the
didn't get into IIT, I had a plan of going to St. Stephen's College in Delhi.
time.
I didn't
Oh,
know what it was, but I said it's a good college. And I had this national scholarship, so I had enough money to pay my hostel bills. So,
nice, nice,
so on my own without
fantastic.
asking my father. So I was, but I never pursued that.
So tell me about that 65-page calculation where you ate dosa and
Ah,
calculated things.
okay. So I mean, contrary to what you might think, uh, my first 2 years of my PhD were wonderful. Then I joined my advisor, and uh, and that was like a plane crash. And
Wow.
yeah, so about so I worked on some project. The first project he gave me, I gave some, you know, I was an idiot, I would say, maybe. He asked me to prove something I won't discuss in detail, but I gave an
Yeah.
information theoretic argument as to why this will not work in 30 seconds. Instead of just, you should have seen the look on his face. I mean, I didn't know that. I was too naive. I missed that whole thing. But I said, anyway, since he said you learn, so I learned about renormalization of gauge theories, etc. And then he said you're supposed to take a limit. I took that limit. It proved zero equal to zero. So it was proving my information theoretic argument. But anyway, that way some projects were going. But then finally, I had a project. I worked out something and gave it to him, and he had some objections to it. So this was already, 2 years I've been doing coursework, and so it's like a year and a half. I have worked out something, given it to him, and he says I have issues with you, with the problem with what you have done. Except he wouldn't meet me. So to be honest, I met him to discuss physics, probably 3 or 4 times in my whole 3 years that I was there. Okay, so there was
Interesting.
really so, and even my own people, other people in our group, none of them even would talk. I remember going and asking one of them, "Hey, you wrote a paper. Can you just explain it to me?" It's trivial, yeah. You read the paper. This is how it was. So I was not used to discussing with anybody. It was me and the wall, and so I was very isolated. And so he did meet me and things like that. So now I'm 4.5 years into my PhD. I have to. I have funding for 5 years. So 6 months and no paper. He's been sitting on something for more than a year. He hasn't told me what the issue is. So I don't know how serious it is. And so then I'm in trouble, but I have nothing to do. So I started learning. So Witten had done some beautiful work on topological field theory, and I learned supersymmetry. I learned a lot of things on my own. I was sitting there and learning. I was enjoying. I continued my learning process, but these were reading research papers, working through those things. And there was another string theory. One more problem my advisor had with many students, and he treated each one differently. And so uh, there was a racist thing in the whole thing, which I found out only later. But anyway, but I'm at least 50% to blame for where I ended up with it. So there's another professor in my department who joined just 6 months after I chose my advisor. Otherwise, I would have worked with him, and that was my bad luck. And but he was writing papers. I was reading his papers also, reading other papers on in this area called topological field theory. It was a new thing. Witten got Fields Medal, etc. And so I'm learning all these things around that time. And so then but then but this is so it's like December, or I'm supposed to graduate in the summer, coming summer. It is December. It's time for application. So I don't want to apply. I want to get one more year of a PhD. My advisor said, look, I don't have money. I said, no problem. I went and met the graduate chairman, and he fixed up something for me. So for one more year, no problems. And I was one of their best students, so none of them knew I was in trouble. They wouldn't even believe it. So, and so I go back and tell him, I got funding for one more year, so I don't need to apply. And then I tell him, he asked me, where did you get your funding? I explained to him, I did this. And then a day or two later, I get a call from that professor saying, no, I think you should graduate.
Wow.
So now it's like 6 months to go, and I have no paper in sight, nothing. And basically, I am put in a situation where if I get, I don't know if this work is ever going to see publication or even a preprint. So I'm really sunk, and that was like probably the lowest point in my life. And but again, I only then I learned how tough I am. I started working like I don't know. I used to sleep 6 hours a day. I used to go to sleep, working, wake up, and start working. So I worked 18 hours a day. I used to sleep
Wow.
6. I started around December that time, and but again, nothing is happening. But somewhere in March, one guy comes and gives a talk on topological field theory, saying topological supergravity is not possible. He tried to do some closure thing. And I told you that other professor, he had done they had some method which I knew I could apply it and do what this person in the seminar said that, oh, it can't be done. So that weekend I showed that it can be done. Except I have no idea what I mean, it was like a long problem set for me. Problem, prove topological supergravity exists
Mhm.
and how to do it. So I just did it. The calculation was 65 pages. Yeah, it's over. Except I don't know what to do. So I took my calculation and I looked for the other professor. His name is Phil Nelson, who moved to biology, by the way. And
Biology,
so
yeah, yeah, very well
Nelson,
known
yes, very,
biophysics. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so Phil, I leave it in Phil's mailbox because I didn't see Phil, but I forgot to leave a note. And then we meet in the car. He had gone out or somewhere, he was not around. He saw me. Next time he saw me, did you leave it? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I did this calculation. I thought you will be interested because I used your methods. And he said, yeah, we got to talk. I said, talk. Okay. I said, this mentor, come and meet me. I went and met him. He said, yeah. Even I mean, after this talk, even I thought about it. And so, and we're checking, let's write a paper. I said, what? This is a paper? And yeah. And so it's like one weekend I got my first paper.
Fantastic. No,
And,
Suresh, this is a very
and
important thing. Yeah, yeah. Please tell,
And
please
no,
tell.
no, just one more thing. So there were
Yeah.
all these people, the other people in the group. Some, they were kind of looking down upon me because here I'm struggling, nothing happening. And overnight, I write this paper, and Phil was like kind of a star in the department anyway.
Hmm.
So, writing a paper with Phil, blah blah. I'm thinking I'm the same. I'm the same joker before and after. If I was a joker, then I'm a joker now. I mean, come on, let's not. This paper is not changing anything in my
Hmm.
mind. I was this thing, and so yeah, and so this really saved me completely.
Fantastic story, Suresh. Also, the level of boost in the confidence after you do this, because see, of course, as a graduate student, you of course have some confidence because that you have been working hard and you have the foundations. But to really, catapult immediately such that you now have an avenue to express your thoughts in slightly more broader context through a research paper would have really played a very positive role for you,
Yeah. I
or
mean, look. I thought that every paper is like 1905 papers of Einstein, and this trivial piddly calculation, which is like a long assignment. Why is that a paper? I didn't know that. No, so somebody has to teach you that what goes
yes,
into a paper, and so that was a real learning experience for me. And so, actually, coming back to my advisor's paper, what happened? He eventually got back to me on that, and he told me that he was not happy with some gauge fixing I did, and I fixed it in one afternoon,
man.
which could have happened 1.5 years ago.
Okay,
And
okay.
the thing is that so now I have to apply also, right? In December, one more part of the story, which is very interesting, is that my advisor told me, I will write letters for you, but they will be. I can. He told me I will write very good letters to India and so letters to people elsewhere. I
Wow,
told
he told
him,
it to you directly.
yeah. And immediately I replied, if you think I'm useless, I think the Indians also deserve to know. Kindly write the same letter for everybody. Imagine, this is my lowest point in my life, but even at that point, I was unwilling to accept this kind of nonsense. And I told him, look, I'm not a guy of the street. I can jolly well take care of myself. And honestly, I'm not very, I'm not sure I'm going to get a degree or anything, but I have some confidence that I'm not going to be just, withering away because I didn't get a PhD degree. I knew and enough self confidence that somewhere, something will work out. I'll do something. It may not be physics, but so what? That's not the only thing. And so I had the courage to tell him these things. I mean, amazing, unbelievable that somebody can tell you this. I was in shock.
Wow, that is the operative word is courage, Suresh. In fact, that is a very important thing because see, it would have been mentally very difficult for you during that particular time, but for the fact that you may be resilient, you would have probably taken it head on and proceeded. But I think a lot of people would not have that gumption, right? Because
Yeah.
so many students, unfortunately, would have quit or it would have even turned very negative on
No,
very
no.
different
I
sides.
mean, they could have ended up as a psychiatrist, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in my case, it just said that let me try to fight, let me keep learning, let me keep working on things, and that was one. I mean, you never know how you are built until that happens to you. So I mean, I would say I'm lucky that I was not in that frame of mind where I ended up in the hospital, mental hospital, or did something even stupider.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, see, that is something, in the hindsight, do you think there could have been a better way of resolving all this from the professor's viewpoint?
Yes,
Because
yes.
it looks like very
No, no, but
immature, right?
no, no, but look, he had such a low opinion of India and Indians that already shows
Mm,
in this letter. And then I met him many, many years later when I was a faculty member at IIT Madras in
mm,
Germany. And so at that time, said, and I mean, you must know that I struggled to get a job. I really struggled to get a job. It's a total fluke. And it's just a year after that, and just, oh, now you must be a full professor in your country. So I told him, but that's not how it works. India is a very competitive country, and it's a fight. I'm just a starting assistant professor, and that's about it. And but then
wow.
is when I realized that this guy
Mm.
has such a low opinion of India, Indians, and so on and so forth. It's, I mean, I don't know why he had to take Indian graduate students if we are so useless. Why? This is the only question I have.
True,
And
true.
I think I was like, 19, 20. I I didn't know how to interact. Maybe I didn't see more. Actually,
Mm.
there was Kalyanarama who worked with the same advisor, but he's like 3, 4 years older, much more mature. He handled Bert much better. He's also Indian like me, but he handled him a lot better. And but I did not. And so that's
Yeah,
what I say. 50% of the blame is me being immature, not knowing, not realizing these things.
no, but you cannot expect somebody who is just out of their undergraduate to be
Not
having this
19. I
kind.
was 22. I was 22, 23.
See, that's what that is actually already very young age, right? That is something you don't expect as students to actually be listening. Yeah, but anyway, we are glad that you
I
emerged
survived.
out.
No, but it's like everything. So now with zero publications, you apply for a postdoc. Who is going to
Mm,
give you a postdoc? And then there are people coming and tell me, why don't you go? There are two possibilities. You can go into biology, or you can go and go into play the stock market. People go and do this programming and stochastic differential equations. I said, no, I want to do physics as long as I want to do. And so, I mean, that would have been and I didn't mind being a teacher, so I applied for some teaching positions also in the US, but those are
mm,
also very competitive. And so I wasn't getting anything, and it was not very important for me to stay in the US. Much more important for me was to do physics. And so but I don't even know. I so applied for postdocs. I shouldn't be getting anything. I had no publications when I applied in December. And I do know my advisor wrote a 2-line letter because I saw the secretary putting in the things in the envelope. And so he wrote some 2 or 3 lines. You can imagine what it would be.
mm.
And so and at that time I had not written the paper with Phil. So I I mean, it looked like I would not get a postdoc, and I actually did something. I saved up money. I said I'll spend 1 year at home and look for postdocs afterwards, etc. So I had money for a year where I would be without this thing, but for some reason which I don't fathom, IMSC Chennai gave me a postdoc offer.
Fantastic,
So
fantastic.
so I
Yeah.
got only one postdoc.
Mhm,
So
mm. So
yeah,
now
and
you
then
make a
TI.
transition, yeah, from
Hmm.
there to IMSC directly,
Yes,
or do you have?
yes. No, I just go to IMSC. So,
Mm,
but yeah, it's really weird. I land in, so TIFR said they're looking at my application and they
mm,
said, you
mm,
give a talk. So I'm returning back to India. I stop in Bombay, stay with some close family friends and take
mm.
the train and go to TIFR to give a talk, etc. They listened to my talk and they said, no, we are not interested in you. So And it was this talk based on this 65-page paper. We wrote a second paper also after that. So it was a mix of both of those things. And so it was my first introduction to Indian physicists.
Physics
Was my talk
community.
there, and they immediately told me they're not interested. And I said, okay. And then I called up, I had the IMSc offer. So I just called up IMSc. I said, I'm coming and joining, and then went home, spent a week at home, and then went to IMSc and joined IMSc, starting a postdoc in physics. And the way I looked at it, come on, I get 2 more years to do physics.
Nice, nice.
Awesome.
That's actually, upbeat and very positive way of looking at it. And so, what is the kind of problems you worked there at IMSC, Suresh? Like, what
So
kind of problem?
even there, like I had no idea who's there in IMSc, etc. And there's no internet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that is.
so I don't know exactly who is there, and it's also IMSc just coming out of the turmoil. That's the whole Sudarshan thing. It had just come out of it.
Mm, mm.
Ramachandran had been appointed, and a lot of new people had joined. And so there is this building, and there's a library on the other side. There's a pathway. So I'm
Yes,
walking on that pathway, and uh, so then there's this sham. Have you been to MSc? There's
yes, I
this
have been. I have been. Yeah.
kind of the hut-like thing structures with a
Yes,
board.
board.
You can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
two guys were sitting there. I'm going there, and they call me. Hey, hey, come here. I go there. And they're like, who are you? I said, I'm a postdoc. I just joined this thing. What have you done? And this guy says, okay. My one guy says, oh, my name is Jairaman. Oh, Jairaman, I know of his work. So, oh, he's here. And this is my student, Varghese John. You want to come sit, join us.
Wow.
And I wrote 15
Wonderful.
papers with, I've written 15 papers with Jairaman, 1-5 over
Wow.
my career.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And then there were a lot of young people. There's, Partha Mukhopadhyay. Partha was there. T.R. Govindarajan was he there? Yeah, I was already there. So there were all these people there. And so I went from isolation to actively having people to talk to. And I mean, basically, Jayaraman, John, Varghese, John, and myself, we would be hanging out all the time. And I continued working 16 hours, whatever it is, 24 minus 6, which is 18 hours a day. I used to go back to sleep at 2 and wake up at 8. 7:30, 8 was my routine. So we'd keep working continuously. And so we started working on two-dimensional gravity. And that time there was this whole things about matrix models, topological gravity, and Liouville theory. So all these sort of things, some of which I knew, some of them. So I didn't know conformal field theory. So at that time, and so they gave me, in particular, there was something called a Felder construction, and so they gave me a quick introduction to it. It was very superficial, but it was enough to give me all the the key things which the rest of it I could fill in, etc. So I learned a whole new thing called conformal field theory out there, and the math associated with it in those 2 years. And it was it was probably the only time in my life where I was actively interacting with other people and benefiting, learning from them, talking to them. This was something which was lacking in my PhD days. And so this was 2 years of, I would say, academic bliss.
Wonderful. What a story. What a story. This is so
And Varghese
fascinating.
John wrote his thesis based on the
Hmm.
work we did.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Wonderful. So, see, this is one point which probably would be very good for many students, especially who would want to look up as US as the destination to do research. Here is a very interesting example in your own life where your experience of working in US probably would have not been that great, but you make a transition back to India and you see that suddenly the community really is, is more open in that sense. And
Yeah.
one should also appreciate the fact that Indian theoretical physics community has had a very long kind of history, very positive kind of history, so to speak,
Yeah.
because it's probably one of the great schools of thoughts in sciences, and this has been a very
I
good thing
also
about
claim the reason is simple.
it.
It's
Mm,
easier to do theoretical physics than experimental physics.
mm,
Experimental physics in India is 10 to 100 times harder than theoretical physics. I mean, this is very clear in my mind. I mean, you have to do so many things. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I only admire you guys. That's it.
Yeah, I hope the whole point of doing the ease of doing research should get better. Hopefully, in the
Yeah.
going in future,
And
I'm
it's not just
anticipating.
about funding, right? It's not just
Yes, yeah,
about funding.
yeah, absolutely right, absolutely correct, Suresh. Because yeah, doing research also requires a good ecosystem, and also the kind of engineering background you require to do good quality physics is
See,
important.
I mean, I think I don't know. I'm not an experimentalist, and you can correct me if what I'm saying is wrong. I've seen that there are two kinds of experimentalists. One who actually build experiments, spend extra time. It takes you longer to build something, and the other one is the indent variety. So they become a
Yeah, okay.
manager. You put indents, and
Yeah,
you get these things. And the second variety, I actually sometimes look down upon because I think you should be building something and so that it is cutting edge, you know. If you're buying some instrument, that means somebody, I mean, I know my at Penn, for instance, the experimental student, my classmates, took at least 1 year more to graduate. Why? Because every PhD student necessarily has to produce one non-trivial you know this thing piece of
instrumentation
equipment. So
equipment.
so my classmate Doug produced a femtosecond laser. He built
Wow,
one full
nice, nice.
starting.
Mm,
So he started. You order the optical table. You order those
mm.
things. You put them together. You tinker. And another guy, Phil, I remember he. I mean, he has. I mean, these guys will go under the whole thing, and you will see the. You go there and see it's just barely working. But if it goes wrong, they know how to fix it. But it's like
Yeah,
cutting edge at that time.
yeah,
Okay, now
yeah,
we will laugh. Femtosecond, everybody, you can buy it off the market. But it wasn't true. In the late 80s, it wasn't true. And that kind of thing is not there in at least I of course I'm limited. I see what in my department I can see that. So there are people who build, there are people
yeah.
who do indent. So I mean, so my point is, if you're buying a piece of equipment, it's obsolete
Mm.
because the guy who's built it, he actually original lab would have been, it's barely working. They have finished doing all their physics experiments. Now they're selling it, so they commercialize it and it goes off somewhere. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, this is what I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, true, true. See, for example, you can always build upon what you buy. In fact, a lot of very good instrumentation can also be done. But that requires, again, as you mentioned, there should be investment of time, thought, and energy on doing instrumentation. In fact, that is something which is a very good culture to develop as an experimental group, because at the heart of doing good experiments is the name experiment. You have to try out a few things,
Yeah,
because there is so much of things to explore where you will not be aware of how things work until you really go and really rip it apart and put it back, and then as you mentioned, you will learn a lot out of that kind of procedures. And yeah, that's actually a great spirit and culture in which experiments are usually done, and that leads to also some very important inventions and discoveries if done right
yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah.
Absolutely correct, absolutely correct.
But
Yeah,
this is
in that
not
sense.
prevalent in our. I mean, this is our weakness. I mean, I joke that it's our great Indian weakness. We don't. Most of us cannot fix our own bicycle
No,
puncture, includes me, by the way.
no, true, true. It so resonates correctly what you're mentioning, because see that culture of doing things by hand is somehow is looked down upon, at
Looked
least
down
in the
upon.
down.
Yeah, yeah. There's always one guy whom you pay 50 paisa or one
Yes,
rupee,
yeah,
he'll do that for you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
That
I mean,
that somehow, yeah, even at home, if children actually are not encouraged to really do things, even for that part, even trivial things like chores,
yeah,
the children should be able to do that. That's a very important part of
yeah,
upbringing, and
yeah,
yeah, that's
that is true.
very critical. So, Suresh, we're going to next discuss about your further transitions which are happening. From IMS, you went again to TFR, if I'm correct,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, was that for a longer time, or you spent
No,
some
it was just
time?
so. Here's the thing. I mean, I keep making mistakes. I think so. Second, I mean, I'm finishing my first postdoc. Like you,
Mm,
like I told you, I was very happy with what happened. And now it's a matter of, do I want to go back abroad to do a second postdoc? And my feeling was, look, I'm back in India. I'm very happy. I don't, I mean, and definitely the string theory people community in India, I have high regard for them. At that time, I thought, at that time, really, there was no HRA. So, Institute of Physics and TIFR. And I don't know. I mean, I thought I will get postdocs in both places. And I thought I'll go to TIFR, which is the best place in India. And it's also, I mean, at that time, it's still one of the best places in India. And why go to some faraway place when I can work in India itself? And I also met my wife at IMSC, and she was doing her PhD there. So I didn't want to just push off somewhere far away. Bombay itself appeared to be far away, and I thought I'll get in. And then, so I'm very peaceful. I'm sure I'll get a postdoc. I didn't know how wrong that was, and so again, it's like March comes. My postdoc ends in August or something. End of August, my term gets over, and then we have a meeting at IMSC, and people come. Then and already by now the community knows me, so
Yeah.
I get feedback. So TFR says, look, we have got very very good applications, etc., and so it doesn't look like you will make it. And I said, oh I said, okay, maybe Institute of Physics will work. It's too late to apply now to other places. So someone else comes from Institute of Physics and tells me, they've got two very good Bulgarians who have applied and they're looking at them. I said, okay, end of my career now. And the TFR offered another Indian guy before me, and that story is very interesting, and the reasoning behind it is even more interesting, and that should have taught me that I will not get a job in India. Okay, and so the logic was the following. So here was a guy who was onto he's already finished two postdocs, and this was going to be his third postdoc or something. He had not published anything after his PhD, but he was apparently working on a very very deep problem, because he's a very deep thinker, as I was informed. And apparently he was very good as a VSRP kid when he came from IIT Kanpur. How can I compete with that? I was not even eligible to enter that building. I never heard of VSRP, honestly. As an EE guy, I didn't know that there was something like that. So he's so good. And so they offered him. And so it's looking bad that I'm not going to get any postdocs. And, but then whatever happened, they had other offers. But TFI said, no, we'll keep you on the wait list. If somebody drops out, you'll get it. But this guy was already in. And eventually I got in. I got a postdoc at TIFR and I joined. And this chappie did nothing even for those 2 years. All he did was smoke and scoff at people like me, saying you are low level guys. And he was still thinking very, very deep. And I mean, if you are connected, this kind of thing, he managed to do this kind of stuff for I think 8 to 10 years, going from place A to place B to place C, each time getting 2-3 years. And here I am, not so smart, obviously not such a deep thinker according to all these people. And but I'm writing my papers, I'm doing my work and producing. So, but that was not good enough, you see. It was not deep enough. And also there is a prejudice against people who do mathematically oriented work. And unless so I also lost on that count. And so, but eventually I got in to DFR. But DFR was extremely isolated place, in the sense that we had some of the best string theorists, including my own office mate. But I couldn't tell you what he worked on. The only way for me to know is when he posts a paper on the archive. That was the sad. I felt really bad. I felt that, here I am in my second postdoc. I can contribute, but I was not even. I mean, for instance, my office mate, he would leave, and they would. If I was in the office, they would not discuss in that room. They'll go somewhere else. So they don't. I mean, very, very, very nice people. I mean, I'm not saying. Obviously, it'll interrupt me, so they would go somewhere else and discuss. So, but occasionally I would come and see something on the board. They would have used the board. So in fact, at that point, some Gautam Mandal, Spenta, Avinash. They moved on to cellular automation, and they were very, Avinash was, one of very sweet guys. Said, "Will you work on this?" And again, I'm like totally undiplomatic. I said, "No, no, that reminds me of engineering. That's the last thing I want to do." So
Okay.
that's not an idea. I mean, looking back, there is stupidity on my part. Avinash is so sweet. He's coming asking, "Can you join us?" And I say no. But eventually, they after a year they left that and they came back to physics. Then I would have been interested. If Avinash asked us, "Will you be interested?" I would have said yes. But then, by then I was already out of that loop. So it's like, so I spent 2 years just working on my own, and my closest buddies were two mathematicians, one a faculty member, the junior faculty member, and another guy was a postdoc, Spanish guy. So three of us, we would be chatting, doing things. And so one day we were in the corridor, and you know, I said this thing, something could be done, and both of them said no, no, no. I said I'll show you, and this thing, that thing. And we wrote a paper actually. It's one of the first papers on punctured Teichmuller spaces, or Teichmuller, some work of Hitchin on parabolic Higgs bundles. Now it is very hot because of Langland's things, but I wrote a paper in '95 with these two guys. They said it can't be done, and so I wrote a pure math paper. And the pure math is the most interesting thing because I understood the gross thing of the proof. We're going to put it on the archive, and both come suddenly very serious one evening. Suresh, we can't post the paper. I said, what? There's a gap in our proof. Of course, if I
Oh.
looked at it 100 times, I won't find the gap. They explained. Then they said, no, no, but there is this guy, Balaji, who I think his name is Balaji, at Chicago. He just submitted his thesis on similar topic. That you should ask if he has this theorem. So they sent an email to Balaji. And then now we're all waiting nervously that he has to say, yes, it is there in the paper, then we can post. And luckily, next morning, reply comes, yes, it is there. And the
Wow.
reference. So we added that paper, it was sent, and the paper got published. It proved to me that, how much ever mathematical I am, I'm not a mathematician. Let's understand. I cannot see, I do not know what a proof is. I cannot see, because I cannot see gaps in the proof.
Yeah.
And we do not have this logical sequencing. I've improved over the years because I've understood what are the common errors that I make. But yeah, I mean, it is. So I wrote a pure math paper when I was there with two guys.
Fascinating. Fascinating. What a story. What a story. Beautifully put. So, Suresh, one point I would want to ask you is that sociology of people judging. That is something which is unfortunate, especially in academic circles, in intellectual circles. This element of making judgments on people is sometimes very detrimental to anybody, right? Because
Yeah,
it may not be required to do that. But as you saw, even in your PhD times, and also now you're talking about the depth, deep thinker, etc., and all. And as you properly pointed out, people who really put their heads down and do work many a times kind of do much better than sometimes people who are rated very highly. Would you want to comment on that? This is an important point, and
yeah, yeah.
what your own kind of life story has kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
interesting.
So there are several aspects to this. So, like I told you, my education is, is very patchy. So I've learned things just like that. So I never did complex analysis. I didn't know analytic continuation, etc. So I remember I would use those words without properly understanding it. My fault, of course. But then I would be giving seminars, and people will ask questions which actually they're not asking a deep question. They just want to finger you. I didn't know that. And some of them were my friends, but they were actually torpedoing my talk, and by being very showing how smart they are. And if I had done one math physics course like they did, I would have known the answer to it. And years later, I'm teaching math methods. I learn all those things. I said, aha, that's what was going on, but it's too late, for me to react to something 4 years ago. But you remember certain things very, very sharply. I even know exactly the question they asked and who asked and what I answered in a stupid way. And that's all because I didn't learn math methods. I never learned complex analysis in math. I told you I learned residue theorem in the corridor. So,
Mm, mm,
and so this is one way of deciding, that I'm useless. And so without even paying attention to what my background is and where I'm coming from, and how much I mean improved. So I mean, if I had gone to, I mean, I just think, if there's an alternate universe or whatever where I had gone to IIT Kanpur, I would have all these things I would have learned as an undergraduate student. I would know all
Mm.
these things. These are the smart alecky things which you mess up a little bit, and and I think I would not be. I mean, I would not have been in India. I would have been a faculty member abroad. So it's kind of, I'm happy that I went the way I went, and I'm happy that I feel that I'm able to contribute in my own small way. I don't think,
Mm.
my teacher ratings, I give myself a C grade or a D grade. I've not, I mean, I find it very hard to get through to students, and it's a very, very difficult job. And yeah, periodically I put up rating, I give myself grades after, 25 years, etc. I think my best grade has been C so far. So,
Yeah,
so
but I
yes.
should mention that you are also a popular teacher in IIT Madras, right? A lot of people do take your course, and I have also seen that a lot of them actually do, interact with you, and you've been very, encouraging for them to do things in a specific way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
think so. I would like to think so, but
mm,
practically speaking, those are, I feel, a very small percentage. And so, for instance, I got a best teacher award. I think 2 years ago. I almost shocked. I fell off the chair. How can I get? And here the thing is that my ratings, the teacher ratings would be always bimodal. I'll get close to maximum or zero. So all you need is three, four guys to give you zero.
yeah, yeah.
And because I am not sympathetic to people who are just trying to slide by.
Mm,
You have
mm.
to earn your grade.
Um,
I don't give them grades. They earn whatever they get. And so they never. And when I was young, I mean, now I have gray hair and stuff like that in the last 3 4 years, but for a long time, I mean, I would be asked, yeah, are you a new faculty member and stuff like that.
mm.
So I never got any respect from students. And some of, I mean, they couldn't believe, I mean, and you know how things are in India, based on how you look, how you dress, all those things decides many things. So now I think I have grade and stuff like that. So I think I get more respect than I used to get, I mean, absolute disrespect. I mean, it's like, in my first 2 3 years I used to get very, very upset, but after that I would laugh and say, yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm no good and stuff like that. Reality is not that, of course. But I mean, why waste time with such people? So,
Right.
I mean, what I'm saying is that I feel that the impact that I have on my teaching is not where it should be. It's not based on ratings. It's not based on feedback of the small people who, the small set of guys who really appreciated what I'm doing, and for them, and they would also respond. I also learn a lot from these people. So yes, there are people who really enjoyed my teaching and etc., but that's a very small percentage. I mean, it's what my feeling is. So that's where my C comes from, really. Look, I'm not happy just giving a good course. I mean, Professor Balakrishnan, my close friend and a very, very fantastic teacher, and so he's I mean, he helped me a lot in my teaching, but we are built very differently. If Balakrishnan has some student who is not particularly interested, he wouldn't bother. I don't care. If I think you're underachieving, I'm going
Mm,
to catch you by the collar. I mean, not literally, but
mm,
figuratively, and
mm,
drag you to where you should be. No sympathy shown, and it will be. I mean, you may not like it. I'm not there to win a popularity contest,
mm.
and so there can be some people who can react really negatively to that, because I think they're underachieving. And I remember, even in my early years of teaching, I had two students who got the same mark in the class. One, I was very thrilled. The other guy, I called and I yelled at him. I said, "You are underachieving." And because I know the level of both the students, one guy had jumped higher to reach this, and this joker had jumped low to come to this number. Both came to the same number, but it's a different yardstick for each person, right? I mean, it is not about
Mm.
absolute. And so this is where I come in. I mean, I'm saying, I mean, I give myself C not because I'm a bad teacher. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that It matters. Your other side matters. Students matter much more, and every student
Very,
matters to me.
yeah, that's very beautifully put. And also, it tells that there is a great element of self-reflection in what you're doing, which is very important. In fact, many a times in academics, we tend to get kind of caught up in that circle of movement and not pause and look at the paths what we have taken. Maybe sometimes it would be jiggling, maybe sometimes we would have deviated from the path. But these are all very important ways of looking at it.
Yeah, but I had
So,
some important checks and balances, especially
mm,
Balki. So I
mm,
would finish my lecture and said, I did this, I did this. Uh-huh. You think you're a genius? No, I'm not. And why are you
mm.
doing this? Kind of sort of then you start then I have to reflect what is it I should have done. When you think about it, yeah, maybe that is too much for this level. So I learned
Mm,
that the same topic can be taught differently to first year BTechs, to MScs, to PhDs, and most interesting thing is the course which I taught for the we have a foundations course for the PhD students, and I, I taught it for 2 years, and I became very popular,
mm.
and I didn't do any teaching there. I said, look, there's only one line which divides you and me. I got the PhD, you're going to get it. So let's remove that line. And so I know we are going to do basic stuff. So I'll give some problem sets. You come and solve it in the board. And you're supposed to explain it to the other guys. I will sit in the corner. And then and our PhD students especially, they used to lack confidence. And
Mm,
then so in the beginning they'll be diffident, but I kept the attendance sheet and said everybody is going to get a turn. I'm going to put a tick, and
mm.
like baseball, 3 strikes you're kicked out of class. Kind of thing. So, but they all used to come prepared. So after 1 or 2 weeks, I was really not needed most of the time. They would be going after each other, big time discussions, how this happens. And once in a while, I'll say, okay, there is some background I should tell you. And then I would also criticize books. I would say,
Mm.
Goldstein, classical mechanics. I'd say the world's most boring book. It has everything. I'm not saying that. Well, there's only one joke in the whole book. How can you? It's a book. You can't. It's like kept in a very high
Okay,
pedestal.
high places still. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And another time I said something in class, and one student comes back and shows me this book which said something else. I look at it, start laughing. Oh, that guy is also just like me. He wrote a book. I haven't written a book, but I have also been wrong before. Let me think about it. I look at it. Oh, this guy is wrong. Huh? Book is wrong, and I said, yes, he's a guy like me. He can be wrong just as I can be wrong. In this case, I'm telling you, you asked me to think again. So I'm thinking again. I'm right. He's wrong. Oh, is that right? And so after this kind of things, and most of them are going to be experimentalists. So and
Mm,
in condensed matter physics, so I would put in applications and stuff.
mm,
All these words that we use, let's do that. But I would do it that in problems in classical quantum mechanics or classical and stat mech is what I did. So I did all those things where they will understand various things, and their confidence just the people at the end of the course they started doing well in comprehensive exams, etc. In fact, one case,
mm.
there was experimental part and a theoretical part. The advisor got very angry. What is this? You answered theory very well, and you're going to be an experimentalist. This part you have done terribly. What is going on? But so that was I think that those 2 years I really got through to those people, and so those are my fan club in some sense.
Fascinating, fascinating. So, before we move to another important segment, which is your running, I would want to just touch upon the last transition where you are now
I
becoming a
actually
faculty.
want to talk about one more thing, which
Yes,
it is about
please, please.
undergraduate research.
Yes, please, please tell
So
Suresh. Yeah.
I don't know. As time has gone by in recent times,
Mm,
all PhD schools are starting looking for research output
mm,
from undergraduates. So I like to joke that I don't think I will get into pen today
mm,
with my background. Okay, so I didn't know much physics. Papers, no chance. So decent grades, decent scores, and everything. But come on, that is not relevant. And so I don't think I would get in. But yeah, so around 2012, I thought that we have all these smart guys, definitely much smarter than me for sure, and they're generally jobless doing things. So I said, let's start something. And people are anyway saying undergraduate, let's start working on some problems. I mean, I was not thinking in terms of papers. So I started something called the partitions project. So at that time, I posed a particular part. They think we should write a program which will enumerate solid partitions 100. So these generate normal partitions of integers to higher dimensions. The next
Yeah.
one is called plain, solid, so on and so forth. So plain and regular partitions, there's a nice generating function, but it's not known for all those things. So I started this project, and then I have right now in higher dimensional partitions, I'm one of the experts, and I've written 4 papers in that area. And
Wonderful.
so it involved a lot of students, and especially one student came up with a massive new algorithmic improvement which enabled us to do not 100 but 68, so exact enumeration. And so this and many aspects of those problems we had students working on many a time. And then I also started another thing called group called Boltzmann, where we will meet one Saturday afternoon, and we will just it'll be a group of students who are interested in physics. We'll pick a topic or a theme, and we read through it. Each person will read and things like that. And for me, that was because I feel that students in India have forgotten the joy of learning.
Learning.
Till today, you'll agree, right? I mean, if you learn something new, it doesn't matter from whom. It's fun. I mean, there's so much fun in learning for the sake of learning. And so these two things really, I use that to influence students. I mean, to get them to start enjoying learning things and teaching themselves, not from a course and stuff like that. So Boltzmann project, that's actually, if you go ahead and look at it, you will see details of that.
In fact,
but
I will be linking that in the show notes for listeners. They can always go and check. In fact, I have it in front of me also, the refined counting and other aspects of it. It's a beautiful kind of a problem.
So I mean, I ended up writing a paper which was an improvement over in 2012 I wrote a paper. So it was maybe 2010, I think. 2012 I wrote the paper, which was an improvement of a 1967 result written by 4 big names, 3 mathematicians and 1 computer scientist. And so I remember working on this, and one of them, his name is Mackay, and our results overlap. And so Mackay writes to me. I mean, he's a very famous guy. He just passed away 6 months ago. And so he's a mathematician. And Mackay wrote to me saying, oh, nothing has happened when he saw my results. And nothing has happened since we worked on it in 1967. So when I wrote this paper, I said, and it was really my generation which didn't do anything in that area. And so when I wrote that paper, and I sent it to him, of course. And then I wanted to ask him, now do you agree that there has been progress? I didn't have to ask him, but I knew it was progress. And I'm mighty proud of that result. I think it has 2 citations.
That is that's another dimension altogether.
So no, the funny thing is, I get this result, and I have a nice. I mean, it all sort of started off. The refined counting started because you post this on this. There's some group in which people participate and post number. I mean, combinatorics stuff. And of course, online encyclopedia of integer sequences, etc. So from that, somebody asked me this question. And then I tried to, somebody named Paul Hanna, I never met this guy. He asked me something, and I tried to prove it, but I knew I could prove something more. And I proved that, of course. But I did something much more than that. And I write, except I don't know, I don't work in this area as a research scientist. And so how do I write a paper? How do I even publish it? I don't know where to send it to. So then I write to George Andrews, who is one of the big names in, I mean, he's the guy who discovered Ramanujan's Lost Notebook.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
It's a famous number theorist. And he's worked on partitions and stuff like that. It's at Penn State. So I sent him an email, not even expecting a reply. But I sent the draft of this paper, sending it to him. A, asking him, B, is it interesting result? B, if so, where can it be published? Pretty much he replied in a few days saying, yes, it is very, very interesting and you must publish it. And he gave me a list of 3 journals. I sent it to the first journal. And I have a suspicion he was my referee, because the referee report came and my heart sank. He accepted the paper, but
Mm.
it was written in text, 66 lines going to one page, some 4 pages saying line one, line this. You want to say this, you're saying this. So improving the manuscript to make it more mathematically precise. I mean, I have never seen. I mean, after receiving physics journal referee report, this is like somebody has spent quite a lot of time reading, telling me how to write the paper for a mathematician. So it's so kind, and the paper got published. I mean, it's a beautiful story,
Fantastic.
even that one. And
Fantastic.
how so that's a pure math paper in combinatorics, Journal of Combinatorial Theory, Series R or something. Don't tell me. So
Wonderful. This is so fascinating. So fascinating. So, what time did you make a transition to a full-fledged faculty member, Suresh? Like, you
So
then.
after my postdoc, so here's what happened. So after I graduated, I finished from TFR. I did not. I got. So now I said now I was not. Even getting shortlisted in places. Okay, so like IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Guwahati, I don't know, you name it, Saha Institute, I don't know how many places anywhere, Banaras Hindu University, I'm not even shortlisted, man. I don't think I'm shabby, but I don't think I'm that bad. I'm not saying I'm genius or anything. I never considered myself that. I'm not getting anything, and actually when I left IMSC, they wanted. I mean, people said, "Oh, why don't you come back as a faculty?" I said, I would like to come back, and that I will, but I need one more postdoc. I need to see one more place. It will be a good experience, and I thought I'll come back to IMSC as a faculty member, but it didn't work out. And luckily, I found out because somebody told me that look, you're not even shortlisted there because they
No.
had inside information. I said, oh, okay. But then it had a torpedo effect. All research institutes in India, HRI was just starting, they're looking for faculty members, but I don't get in there. Institute of Physics, no. So even the research circle, so the so-called top-notch places, I don't get in. I'm not getting anywhere. And so I applied. This time I said I go for third postdoc, but I was very clear on this even before. If I do a third postdoc, I'm quitting physics and
Oh,
making a
wow.
living.
Okay. Okay.
So I got this time I got a fellowship to go to CERN, so which is a good postdoc to get, thanks to some people at writing good letters at least finally from TFR. They saw me working. That much you must grant it, that this guy was working writing papers, not sitting there. And so, I mean, full credit to them. I mean, I won't name people, but and so I got into CERN, and so I was getting ready to go to CERN, but in March I had interviewed at IIT Madras, but that time they had areas, so I interviewed in nonlinear dynamics and statistical physics. That was the area. So I had worked on Ising model kind of things on it's on random lattices. That's actually 2D gravity models which can be thought of this. So those Ising-like models. So I gave my job talk as Ising-like models on random lattices, random triangulated Riemann surfaces, and then made that into my job talk based like this thing. But they shortlisted me, thankfully. That was Balki. I think he shortlisted me. I don't know why, but so I gave the talk, and but I said, Nilima Gupte, she works in exactly that area. She is also applying, and look at it. I will give the job to Nilima, not me. Forget other people. And so I said, one, no chance. IT Madras. And so I interviewed this thing. So, but my paperwork wasn't done, and my wife was in Chennai still doing her PhD. So I wrote to IMSC. They didn't give me a job, but they're very kind. I mean, they gave me a 2-month visiting position. So I had 2 months to do all my paperwork, go to CERN, do my third postdoc, quit physics, and maybe quit India for good. This was this was the plan. So it's like I've always been very clear about, even before I said 2 postdocs was the norm for theoretical physicists,
Yeah.
for physics people. So after 2 postdocs, if you don't get a job, that means your time is up. Again, it's because I didn't have godfathers, godmothers. It turns out, in hindsight, that's what is the thing. And so nobody pushing my case, which means you don't make it. Now I know that, but I didn't know that in those days. So yeah, so I come to IMSC for 2 months and settle down in the guest house there. And pretty much 10 days later or 10, 11 days later, I get a call, I get the IMSC, I get the IITM job. I can't
Wow.
believe it. Yeah. Nilima got the job, of course, but they actually gave me a job as well. But I probably it didn't hurt that I was a BTech from there.
Mm.
So, so maybe that helped. And
Beautiful. Very nice.
and then obviously forget going to CERN, going anywhere. So I said, okay, I got a job now. But I did actually a very interesting computation at that
Mm.
time. So I said, CERN will pay me X amount in uh, in 2 years, and I converted that to rupees and asked how much IIT will pay me at that salary, and salaries were very low at that time.
Yeah.
It was and retirement age was 60. So in what CERN will pay me in 2 years will be paid in 30 years in
Wow.
IIT. That was the disparity. But I said, no, no, no. But the biggest thing is that I get to do 30 years of physics, not
Yeah.
do something else. So I was very, 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 very happy to join IIT Madras.
Yes. Yes.
And looking back, I mean, at that point, it felt like a letdown not getting into a research institute, the
Mm.
mindset.
Mm.
And a bad thing. But hindsight now, oh, this is the best place for me. Research institute is not a place for me. I love teaching. I couldn't teach enough there,
Mm.
and
Mm.
so and I told you there are all these gaps in my education. As a teacher, I filled all of them, and and one interesting thing of my which I didn't know was that I told you that I spent 3 semesters just logging.
Mm.
All that prepared me for teaching. So from day one, I could go to a class without notes, right on the board. And I used to go too fast. And so my wife said, don't even bother. I used to carry some things. I stopped carrying those things. So I gave all my lectures without any notes till today.
Wow.
Most of the
Mm.
time it's without
Mm.
notes. But I have the things in my head,
Mm.
ideas, etc., details. But one thing is sometimes you mess up.
Mm.
But I'm okay messing up. Students actually they're very forgiving. I must thank
Mm.
all my students because they're always forgiving. I make mistakes. They after some time it's a game. Figure I said factors of 2 pi you have to fix. I by the way I can do honest truth is I can do it
Mm.
without messing up even one. But I said
Mm.
that's not my point. Your job is to keep track of these things. But
Mm.
sometimes you genuinely get stuck in a calculation.
Mm.
It
Mm.
happened probably 2, 3 times in my whole career, but it has happened. And that time you just tell them, okay, I'll figure it out later and come back
Mm.
next class and stuff like that. And but they are so nice. If you are open about your problem,
Yeah.
they are very kind. Students are very kind to that kind of professors. They are only
Absolutely.
people who hide their lack of knowledge and cover it up with threats. Those people are they
Mhm.
make fun of. So I had a good time teaching. So I think I ended up in the right place.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Beautiful, beautiful. In fact, I would now want to kind of, literally run
Yeah,
into
yeah, sure, sure.
a very interesting element of your work, which is running. This is something, Suresh, as you also have mentioned that you've been regularly running almost 2000 k per year on an average. You've been doing that, and tell us how did you got interested in running? What was your initial stage at which you started running? Why you started running?
Yeah,
And what is your routine? Tell us everything about that. That is a
yeah, yeah,
fascinating
sure.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Actually, my routine is something very unusual compared to most people.
Mm,
And what happened is that I've always never been overweight. Always been a very active person.
mm.
For instance, I never take elevators. I take the stairs.
Yeah, I've
And
seen on campus
I
also you cycle. Yeah, right.
I cycle. Even here, I cycle. It's about
Mm,
6.5 kilometers, 6.25 kilometers from my home to office and back.
mm.
So I do, 12.5 kilometers every day cycling and
Wow.
another 10 kilometers of running in Zanzibar.
Mm.
So,
You
so
you're
what
running every
happened?
day? You're running every day now?
I run 5 days, five,
Mm.
5 days, 5 to 6 days a week.
Wow,
So
amazing, amazing.
that's my
Mm,
typical routine. It's like a rhythm to life. But what happened? I mean, I consider myself an accidental runner, and like I said, I was always active, agile, and so some random testing was done. So it showed that I had high cholesterol, high BP, and I was pre-diabetic. All, and this is when I'm before 40, age 39.
Wow.
And then people will say, take this tablet for this, take that tablet, this thing. So I said, no, no, no. Can you give me some time? They said, okay, we'll give you 3 months. You do whatever. So really, diet, I didn't have to do much changes, but I got very regular in when I ate. Okay, regular in eating times, and no sort of irregular. I did that, and I started walking, brisk walk, 40 to 45 minutes, 3 days a week. Cholesterol came down. So, for instance, important point is my HDL was in the mid 30s, and obviously LDL, etc., is off scale. It's like overall some 250 or something like that, and it's really bad. And so then I did this, and they did a test 3 months later, and these things improved. Okay, so I didn't get medication for, so my HbA1c or the diabetes levels came down to acceptable levels, adding just 3 to 4 days of brisk walk for 40-45 minutes. That's all I was doing. And diet, I was doing this. And after 3 months, this thing, so for even blood pressure also got controlled. It came down. And then I discovered something interesting. So I was actually, you will appreciate this as an experimentalist. So I got one of these monitors. I'll measure my thing in the morning, in the evening, and I maintain a table. I even do a graph
Nice, nice.
with the data. So after those 3 days, this thing, and then I also did things like, oh, I walk in the evening versus walk in the morning. I found walk in the morning works better than this thing, walk in the evening. And it gave a drop of, one of them, the higher one came down 10, the other one came down 5 or something. All these things. I went in after this 3 months or 6 months. I don't know. I had to meet the doctor. He looked at this. I wish I had many patients like you. Everybody comes and tells me, increase this tablet or increase this and bring my thing. You are doing something else. But all this is very well. I want you to stop making these measurements. And he cut the medication.
Okay.
So after that, I stopped, but I learned something from that experiment, which is that morning walks are better than this thing. So it was very nice. I continued this for a few years. And then for a year, I think. Then I take a sabbatical to CERN in Geneva, walk for 1 hour brisk. Oh, not one drop of sweat. In Chennai, you think about walking, you start sweating. Man, this is crazy. What do I do to get some sweat at least, right? I said, okay, let me try to run. Except I don't know how to run. I start running after, 20 meters, I'm running full tilt, 100 meters dash pace, I think. I don't know, but after 100 meters, I'm like huffing, puffing, I can't go any further. I said, this is not great. So then I figured out, no, I should run a little slower maybe or something. I don't know. I tried something. And so by the end, so I was 40 when I started running. Started
Fantastic.
age 40. So I'm not a long time runner, nothing. I started running at the end of my sabbatical year. I was running 3 to 4 kilometers. And so it's not like I started running marathons overnight. So many people, they start late or whatever, but they ramp up very quickly. Within a year, you see them, they go 5K, 10K, this thing. Then they have some, what is it? Bucket list. That's the word. Bucket list where they want to run a marathon and they go and run for 5 hours, 5.5 hours, or half marathon, 3 hours. I looked at I can't do all these things. 3 hours, it looks so long. I'm not doing any of these things. So I'm running 3 to 4 kilometers. Then IIT Madras, they have this campus race. Actually, the institute, it's the intramural race. But those days, it was also other people are allowed. So it was a 7-kilometer route, around 7. So I said, I have to practice. Let me run that. So I practiced and reached 7. So a couple of years go by. Then Chennai Runners, which is a running group in Chennai, they started at their first event. They had 10K half marathon. Half marathon looked too much. So I said, I'll run 10K. So now, but by then I had actually reached, I was doing My long run was around, I had a route. See, I used to run in the most simple manner. I have my watch, not even digital watch, just this analog watch. I
Analog one.
wait till I hit some second zero and start my run. And I could go this thing, and I do the standard routes which I used map and figure out the distances. So I will know the time and this thing. I started bookkeeping on something called Runkeeper, which I still do. So I'll put the distance in this, and I had drawn the maps there, so I know the distances. So that's how I was running for many years. So I already reached. So then I had short. By the time the CM short was like 3-4 kilometers, medium was 6, and then occasionally I would do 9. Long distance for me those days. So long. This 10K race came, so I said 10K 9 to 10 is nothing. Let me practice. In fact, I ran my first 10K. I looked at it somewhat about 6 months ago. My first 10K was in 55 minutes, which is, I
Wow.
mean, people want to go below 1 hour, but I did my first 10K. But it was like I'd already been running for 4 years or 5 years, and almost that distance, adding half a kilometer is not a big deal. So, so that's how it happened. Then I ran for, in the second year, I ran, and then that time the crowds increased. And this, by the way, the 10K was within the IITM campus, so I didn't even have to go anywhere. But the second year, the crowds had got too much. And I said, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to run 10K again in this. So I said, now what do I do? Do I run half marathon? Either I run half marathon or become a volunteer. So these are the two options. So I said, okay. So let me try. So I was, imagine I'm running 10, 11 kilometers at that time. So I said, okay, let me, this thing. I remember the first time I ran some 16 or 17 kilometers. Towards the end, I started feeling hungry. I said, hey man, this is something new. What's going on? I'm feeling hungry. I used to do nothing. I mean, I'm not carrying water, nothing. I don't know anything. So then I said, oh, then I figured out there is something, you eat something in between or something. So then I got clever. I adjusted my route such that halfway point I'll go home, eat, drink some water, and then continue and finish. So that hunger pangs wouldn't come and I get back to it. So you need, it's a subtle thing. Nutrition comes into play where actually hydration becomes important. So I started incorporating that, and I was very happy doing those things. And I said, okay. And half marathon, and I reached a point where I can run half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers every weekend. In the beginning,
Wow.
when I started running, after that, I'll come back and sleep in the afternoon for 2 hours. It's so exhausting. But as time went by, nothing. I got used to it. My body got used to it. So, aram se I will be running, and we had nice student running group. We'll all run together, go to competitions. It was fantastic, and I was doing fine. And marathon, I said, forget it. I don't see myself running for 5 hours. I mean, because here's the thing: when I ran my half marathon, I was doing it, 2 hours 10 minutes, and it came down to 2 hours, which is very much in control. But I did not see myself running for 5 hours, 6 hours, and then they are limping for 4 days, 5 days. I mean, I didn't see myself doing any of those things. No chance. And somebody asked me, "Are you going to run a marathon?" I said, "No, never." But then I have this running friend. I never met him. I met him eventually, but he is in Singapore. His company was sponsoring the Chicago Marathon. Imagine Chicago in the USA. This is one of, like, in Wimbledon. I mean, you have in tennis the big ones, the slams, right? Wimbledon, Australian Open just got over, so on and so forth. So Chicago, Boston, these are all London, Tokyo, Berlin. These are the big ones. So he said, I can get you entry to Chicago. But I said, yeah, but I have to go to Chicago. Who is going to pay the ticket? So I said, I don't think and who wants to run a marathon? It's too much work. So, but he persisted. And then I was, who's going to spend money also? And then my wife said, do you want to go? If money was not an issue, will you go? I said, I might go. I don't know this thing. Said, if that is the thing, go. So she is the one who said, go. So I said, okay. But if I'm going, I said, I'm not, like I told you, I'm not running for 5 hours. If I even think I'm going to take 5 hours, I'm not going to Chicago. So then I took a plan by somebody named Hal Higdon or whatever. And then for 18 weeks it is. And running, I think 5 days a week or something. So he had this plan. I just blindly followed it. Except I don't know, you're supposed to pick a marathon pace. I have no idea what my marathon pace is. So I said that, okay, but they have some 20-mile runs or 32.2 kilometers. So my goal was to run 10 minutes per mile, which is around 6:15 per kilometer.
Mm.
That is what I wanted to do. So I was running these 20 miles. Once I think I paced somebody, or another time I joined a marathon and ran to the
Mm.
venue, ran the marathon, and then I had to run 2 more kilometers, ran somewhere and finished and was dog tired. Didn't matter. So I somehow did 3 times. You had to run 32 kilometers
Mm.
plus. And I wanted to do it in, it's 20 miles, so 200 minutes. So target was I should finish it in 2 hours, 20 minutes. Never succeeded, but it didn't matter. But by then I was able to run those distances, etc. So I don't know if I've run 26, but here I am. I go to Chicago. I meet this friend. He also comes. Another friend from Texas also comes. We three are
Mm.
in the start line. And I don't know if I should say confidence or whatever. I had no doubts. Standing at the start line, I have no doubts that I will finish. Absolutely no doubts. I don't know how much time I will take. And Chicago, and the thing is that I never used. I was telling you, I was just running by using watch, etc. So 1 week before that, I went to my sister's place and I got a watch. I mean, I got a watch, I think, around that time. So no, yeah, she had given me a watch 6 months before that. I had a watch, a running watch, some Polar or something like that, and then she got this thing. So except that uses GPS. And Chicago, the start, what happens is that there are big buildings, so GPS doesn't work. It gives you all fake, wrong timings, wrong everything wrong.
Mhm.
First 5 kilometers is garbage data. So I'm running completely by feel. If you ask me, I'm running around 6:15 per kilometer. Okay, but fact is no, it's not. And but I and compared to Chennai, that was cool weather. Apparently, it was hot home that day. Don't ask me. For me, it was very nice. Okay, so it was perfect weather. I'm running peacefully, and then after 5 kilometers, then there are nice markers. I mean, the majors, the courses are marked beautifully. So there are 10, 15 kilometer markers every mile. Everything is there. So I was able to around 10 kilometer mark. I'm able to see where I am. 15 also I see. Now it looks like I'm going to do. I'm on my at 20th kilometer. I see I can. If I run, I'm going to
Mm.
have a personal best in half marathon.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah,
Mm.
I said, okay, what the hell? Let me run. I ran my fast. I ran, 5 minutes per kilometer, and past the halfway point, I did 1 hour 55 minutes, which was my personal best at that time. Before that, it was some 157, 158 or
Mm.
something. By
Mm.
improved by 3 minutes. I said, okay, now that you have achieved this, shut up and start running easy.
Easy.
So I said, I'll do 6 to 6:15. You are not
Oh,
allowed to go fast. So I started going slow. I slowed down after that. I said, the goal now is not anything else to finish.
finish.
Yeah, then,
Oh.
but I remember one of my friends, Arvind, told me that, look, even the great runners around 20-mile mark, they'll have some issue or the other.
Mm.
Then it becomes a mental game.
Mm. Mm.
Lo and behold, I reached 20-mile mark and cramps come,
Wow.
calf cramps. Now I have to manage it.
Mm.
And so I said, okay, what do I do? You keep running. When you cramp, you start walking, then it'll ease off.
Mm.
So run, walk the last 10
Mm.
kilometers. That way I finished the race. But I
Wonderful.
finished. But then, you have this thing, you reach the finish line, you want to do a last hurrah. So last
Mm.
100 meters, I picked up pace and I just, and I'm just going to cross the line. My calf muscle completely seized. And then I cross the thing, and then the volunteer, I have to sit down. I'm limping. Do you need help? I'm really angry. More than I say, no, I don't need any help. I know if I walk 15 meters, I'll be okay. But why did it have to happen at this end of the thing? But exactly that happened. But I finished the race, and it was not 5 hours. It was 4 hours, 15 minutes, perfectly, uh, exactly like I would have liked. And so it was
Nice.
a wonderful race. But I trained for it for 18 months, 18
Mm.
weeks, 4.5 months. It's not like I ran there just like that. This is the thing, one thing is that you have to respect the distance and this thing. So it's not, oh, he runs marathons. Oh, no. You need to put in
Mm.
effort. You tell me to run a marathon today, I cannot. I need to, put in effort.
Build it up.
Build it up to that, where your
Mm.
body is able to handle the stress. It's not up to half marathon. I believe it's not, you can wing it,
Mm.
especially if you're younger. At my current age, you can't do that. I was 52 when I ran my
Mm.
first marathon. So I was not particularly young. So, but
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
that's how I became a marathoner.
Yeah.
Until that day, so people say 5K marathon. You say no, no, 5K is not. I mean, marathon is an English word, but technically in running it's 42.2 kilometers. Anything less
Yeah.
than that is not a marathon. So that
Absolutely
day I
right.
became. So that was a wonderful experience.
Superb, superb, Suresh. Tell us a little bit about the regularity and the
Yeah,
discipline required. That is important for us to learn a little bit more.
yeah. Actually, the discipline came before running.
Mhm.
So, I mean, when I joined IITM, what I found was that I was not finding too much time to do research. A lot of things kind of get dumped on you, and it's tough to find time to do things. And so, very, very frustrating. And I said, I love teaching, but if I have to, if I'm not going to be able to write papers, I will quit IIT.
Mm,
That was my. I was very clear on that, and so in the late 90s, 3, 4 years into this, I was very unhappy with where I stood, with my research quality, etc. But in
mm,
between, I spent a year, I had applied for a Humboldt fellowship. I got it, and IIT gave me take a year off. So I went there in 97. I spent a year in Germany, and then I wrote a
mm,
couple of papers there. And one of the papers caught the attention of people at HRI, Ashok Sen in particular, and they made me
mm,
an offer.
mm, mm,
So eventually, I would say that, the knock that I didn't get a research job went away. But then after some thinking back and forth, I thought it won't be good for my wife and my son
mm,
to go to Allahabad. For me, academically, if I was single, I think I would have taken the next train. So to Allahabad. The group
mm,
also, they're all wonderful people, the whole,
mm,
everybody out there. And it have been a great place to be. But I turned them down.
mm,
And so I remained at IIT. But something very interesting happened after the day after I turned them down
mm,
is that
mm,
I used to complain about everything in IIT. I remember once Balki told me, if you are so unhappy here, why don't you leave?
mm.
Valid point, valid point. Anyway, I said nothing to that, but he had a point. After that day, I stopped complaining about IIT.
Mm,
I said, I'm here on my terms now. I had a chance to leave. I didn't leave. I chose to stay. So after that day, I mean, maybe a mindset or whatever. But coming back to that's also a time where my son was born, and I'm
yes.
telling you, I'm frustrated. I'm not able to do research, etc. But it also coincided with an uptick in my research, not downtick. I thought my already I'm struggling. The uptick is interesting. I had less time to do research, even less time, because I have to help at home. And both my wife and I were very keen that we don't get our parents to come and participate in our thing. We have to do the raising. So so it meant giving time for the kid, and so it was. But that meant that I'd stopped wasting time. Chai breaks were gone. I wouldn't go for chai breaks. I knew that I have to go back at home at some time. This thing, so I would use those times to this thing. And then
Mm,
when he grew a little bit older, when he was a year and walking around, he would wake up. If I'm awake at 11 o'clock, he'll wake up and he'll start playing. You're
mhm,
awake. So he used to sleep at now. So what we started was 8:30 is his sleep time, and we would go to sleep at 9. So to compensate, I would wake up at 4 a.m. So I got into this
mm,
great routine, which I was not running those days.
mm,
So I would wake up at 4 a.m., have a cup of coffee. I'll be the first one to wake up. My wife will wake up half an hour later. So
mm.
I'll make a cup of coffee for myself. And one thing which I love doing is making coffee for my wife and filter coffee. And so, I mean, only people from, I think, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu will understand the significance
Yeah.
of that. And so we are serious about only two things, filter coffee and how curd is made. So,
And
so
curd rice also.
curd rice maybe not, but our dahi will be like properly
Dahi
set. It's like
will,
chemistry lab. It is like chemistry lab. It's not done like
absolutely, absolutely right, absolutely
so.
right.
Yeah, so I used to wake up at 4 a.m. and then I found that between 4 and 6:30,
Hmm.
I can get more work done than I would do for the rest of the
Oh,
day. So you go to work. So I would go to work by 9 a.m. say, unless I have 8 a.m. class. You already have got solid work done for the day,
solid work done.
especially research
Hmm.
and things like that. And so that was really the uptick which led to this thing. But now it also helps in running. No way you can run in Chennai other than the mornings or late evenings.
Mm.
Evenings don't work for me. So
Yeah.
so early morning, either I start working, and if something is working well, I will just stop the run. And I mean, number one is very clear. My passion is very clear. Number one is family, of course. Number
Mm. Mm.
two is physics. Number three is running, distance run.
Running.
I mean, physics will win
Fantastic.
any day over running. But it's now a passion. I really discovered that I enjoy running. And the
Mm.
best part is that on days, there's a difference between the days I run and don't run. Anger, you don't get angry easily on days when you have run. And most of the, so it, and that feeling lasts around, if you ran in the morning till around noon, 1 p.m. But bulk
Mm.
of the which happens, irritants come, they happen at that time anyway. So you
Mm.
don't react to, and etc. And if somebody says they don't have any of those irritants, they are not, they are lying, because every office has its
Everywhere.
own. I mean, special about the place I work. I mean, it's there everywhere. So then you handle those things well, and then the rest of the day is good. So running days are good days from that viewpoint. And so if you have, it really helps your health in many, many ways.
So
It's the
all your
best time to
parameters
run.
came back. All your parameters
Yeah,
came back.
so
Yeah.
I actually have turned diabetic in the last
Mm.
9 months, but I managed
Mm.
to go 19. I mean, never, don't look at it negatively. I
Mm.
managed to
Mm.
push medication for 19 years. Even now,
Mm.
it might go away, but I don't know, because I'm here. I have to check.
Mm.
So they have to tinker. The tinkering hasn't happened.
Mm.
So I'm taking some medication at this point, but actually so I'm I'm officially diabetic now. But it was a very slow crawl HbA once I went up. But then the COVID period was tough.
Mm.
Also, I was handling two older people who were sick,
Mm.
and my father passed away, my aunt passed away. I mean, those were like tough years,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
teaching online wasn't fun. And
Mm. Mm.
so all these things contributed to that. So I don't know. Probably now that those stress things are gone, I have a feeling that my parameters. So at the end of the day, what I want to say is that running, diet, these things have kept diabetes at bay. It's actually genetic. It's not my fault. My parents are
Yeah.
diabetic, both. So I mean, it's not my fault. Actually, doc also
Mm.
told me it's not your fault. Please.
Mm.
And so yeah, so it's good. Running has been very good for me, health wise, etc. And my fitness levels, I mean, so so it's really good. As
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
nearing, I'm going to turn 60 in a year. In 2025, I will turn 60. So, but I think my fitness levels are better than when I was in my 20s.
Fantastic.
I
That is
just ran a
amazing.
25. I just ran a 25-minute 5K, which is slightly slower side for me. Just on 25 here.
People will kill to get that number. To be very frank,
I,
25
yeah,
is a remarkable number actually. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it was
wonderful.
fun running with Zanzibari kids.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit very shortly about the Zanzibar experience. You are now, by the way, I
Yeah,
should again tell that Suresh is joining us from Zanzibar, which is actually in the Indian Ocean, just off the mainland of Africa. And tell us a little bit about that,
yeah.
Suresh.
So, yeah, like you said, Zanzibar is off the mainland of Africa. It's an
Mm,
island. It's actually a bunch of islands,
mm,
and I'm on the main island. It's called Zanzibar, but it has another name. There are other islands called Pemba, etc. And so IIT Madras started this campus in Zanzibar. Its first offshore campus. I
mm,
guess Bits Pilani and all have done these things. But this is very different. I mean, Bits Pilani in Dubai is not like, doesn't compare with Zanzibar, because
mm,
Zanzibar is like India was in our 80s, like we were discussing at the beginning of this
mm, mm,
podcast. It's like that. I mean, there are so many things. I mean, there's no Amazon. You can order
mm,
something, everything, and people are walking lots of distances.
mm,
People walking 1-2 kilometers to go to school is not unusual there. So it's a very this thing, but people are so nice out here.
mm,
People are very, very nice, very kind to each other, kind to others. So it's a beautiful place, but it also has some issues. It's laid back,
mm,
island culture. It's up. So they want to help you, but it'll take time. So you have to.
Mm.
I mean, we are like used to instant gratification or whatever. So we expect, the here you have to be. So I had to teach myself to be patient.
Patient.
So yeah, patient. So, but coming, the reason I came here was, I actually was because my wife and son said, Zanzibar, no, we can go to Serengeti. You are crazy, Appa. You should go to IITM Zanzibar. So in the morning I was thinking, I won't, I will go. Afternoon I think no. Anyway, my HOD sent a message saying, who, if anybody is interested in physics, teaching physics,
Mm,
please write. And I was still not sure, but then he knew that I might be interested. So he saw me
mm,
and said, aren't you interested? I said, then he said, you better send email. Others are asking as well.
mm,
So I
mm.
sent an email, say 1 o'clock one afternoon. The next morning at 10 a.m., I'm sitting with Preeti, who is the director in charge of
Yeah.
IIT Zanzibar, and Raghu, who is our dean of
Mm,
global engagement.
mm.
Both wonderful people, friends of mine, both. And they're saying, oh, we were very worried about physics, and now we are relieved. We don't know about other subjects. You are teaching physics. In my mind, I have not even, sort of concretely thought that I'm
Con-
going to be
con-
in Zanzibar. Oh, now I am going to Zanzibar. And I said, you have any syllabus? They showed me a syllabus. It had
Mm,
like what will be effectively 4 courses. And there was only one program on data science and artificial intelligence or something,
mm,
AI. That is the BS, and they have an MTech. So I'm
mm.
teaching only the BS, the first year physics course. So
Nice.
I looked at it. I said, this cannot be taught in one semester, and I don't know. So they said, no, no, no. This is just we're giving it to you. You create
Mm,
a curriculum for them. But I said I can't create a curriculum in vacuum. I need to look at the students because it's
mm,
from two. We don't know what the constitution will be. Is it going to be only Indian students who have come
mm.
there? Then we teach differently. No, but it turned out that a majority is local.
Nice.
Okay, even though we started late, so it took me, I would say, almost 2 weeks to a month to even gauge how the course.
Mm,
So I started teaching and then keep on adjusting, etc. And then sort of got the level. And the best part is that the students, the improvement that I have seen in the students, the rate of change, the absolute value may not be where it should be, but the rate of improvement is very, very good.
very
And
good.
if you extrapolate, they are going to be very good. So I'm so happy to be teaching, and I'm happy that if I came and only taught Indian kids here, it'll be more of the same.
Mm,
And
mm,
so it's really thrilling to come and teach students from Zanzibar, but I think from next year we'll get parts from the mainland of Tanzania as well as neighboring countries, especially Swahili-speaking countries like Kenya, Uganda, and stuff like that. And
super.
so it's been a beautiful experience,
Mm,
but also tough because everything when we came, the building was everything wasn't ready and things. It's
mm,
been slowly getting ready, and it's really, I'm amazed at the amount of patience both Preeti, Raghu, and everybody have shown.
mm,
As things may not happen at the way they would like it to happen, but they are like patient and persisting, and tremendous support from the government of Zanzibar,
mm,
the president of the island. It's sort of quasi autonomous, so there's full president of Tanzania. So of course
mm,
Tanzania also is this thing. So we had a lot of support from there, and also the
mm.
Indian High Commission. So it's
Yeah,
been
high commission. Yeah.
wonderful experience. So
Mm.
plenty of support, and this institution is in reasonable shape at,
Nice, nice.
at this point. And semester is now, I mean, another 2 weeks, final exams, and I'll be back in India after that.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Suresh, this has been a wonderful conversation. So we are almost coming to the conclusion part of it. So tell us a little bit about your recommendations, your interests, other than physics and running. Is there anything you do to wind down every day, other than
Okay,
specific things?
I mean, I'm a sports fanatic.
Mm.
I like to joke that if I went to a country where curling was the main sport, curling, that thing where that
Yeah.
broom, I would follow that. So so for instance, I still actively follow American sports, especially I
Mm,
follow teams from Philadelphia. So,
Yeah.
so Philadelphia, so NBA season going on. NFL are my team. Eagles did badly. They just got kicked in the playoffs. So I'm tracking, I'm following various things. So I follow all sports except one sport, and I'm also passionate about Indian tennis. So Rohan Bopanna winning,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
doubles at Australian Open and this thing. So I'm really passionate about all these things. I only don't follow men's cricket.
Interesting. Yeah.
Women's cricket, yes, but
Yeah.
not men's cricket. I don't follow it anymore. It was a conscious decision. Not that I was not a fan. I
Nice.
feel that
Nice.
this is like this bloodsucker. In some sense, it
Mm.
sucks all the finance. Everything goes to men's cricket, and all other sports in our country suffer in some ways. Because it's not the fault of men's cricket, but the whole sociology of that thing. So I stopped following men's cricket. Definitely not IPL.
Oh, yeah. Same here.
I'm
I too don't
absolute
watch
sports
IPL.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Great, Suresh. I am extremely thankful for you to, spend this time and also share your knowledge and also fantastic stories. In fact, this has been one of the most illuminating conversations I've ever had, and I thank you very much for all
I
the
hope I didn't say
time.
something very wrong. I mean, I just speak whatever comes to my mind, which has always been my problem. I get into trouble
No,
for that. And
no,
sometimes
no,
I check with my wife, did I say something right, wrong? So hopefully I
no,
did. So if I messed up and somebody got offended, I want to apologize to them. It's not my intention.
no, not at all. This is actually a platform where you can freely express your opinion, and that is an equally important part of having this podcast conversation. So thank you very much, Suresh. Thank you very much, and
So,
I wish you all the best with your further stay at the Zanzibar, and hopefully we'll also catch up sometime later on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm happy I met you when you came to IIT Madras. I should
yes,
come
yes,
someday to IIT Pune. I
absolutely.
came for
It
a
will.
conference, but I have never. I mean, yeah, it's one more thing. I never get invitations within India. I get invitations from outside. So
Hopefully
whatever
that
it
will
is.
happen more often.
Okay.
We'll surely have you on our campus
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now
Okay.
this is
Thanks a lot. Bye.
thank you very much. This is Pratidwani, where we try to humanize science. This time with Suresh Govindarajan.